Chuck. Good morning. How are you? Good.
I realized I didn't eat some dinner last night. Are these low chairs?
Yeah, they were low. Are low.
I ate a big breakfast. Yeah. Oh boy, that was a big breakfast.
When is Don Betts going to greet our distinguished guests?
I think he's going to do that
right away.
Right away.
So we'll call the roll, and I'll recognize Betts first.
Yeah, and let me tell him.
Okay.
I did.
Absolutely. Good morning. I'll call to order the meeting of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. Would the secretary please read the roll? Is he going into it? Yeah. Present.
Keen, Regent Davis.
Here.
Regent Falbo.
Here.
Regent Loftus. Regent McKay. Regent Pruitt.
Here.
Regent Rosenzweig.
Here.
Regent Salas.
Here.
Regent Shields.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Spector. Regent Thomas. Here. Regent Walsh.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. You have the minutes from our September 6th and 7th meeting before you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion is carried. Thank you. I'd like to call upon our host, Chancellor Don Betts, for some remarks.
Thank you, President Bradley. Members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Pleasure to see all of you here with us for day 2 of our opportunity to host the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System. In a few moments, after you contract a bit more business, we're going to continue with the programming that we began yesterday, focusing on the institution. We're going to turn the lights a little bit out and focus on partnerships, the partnerships that really make it possible for us to live the promise we've been discussing for the past 2 days. And several of those partners are here today. So with your indulgence, I'm going to move right to those recommendations and to those introductions. For those of you that are here, I'd like you to stand and be recognized. And then for those of you that were here last night, you can't, but I want to make sure that you are recognized. So let me just start with some of our important guests today who are representing us in Wisconsin. State Senator Sheila Harsdorf from the 10th Senate District. Sheila, thank you. And State Senator Pat Kreitlow from the 23rd Senate District in Eau Claire. State Representative Kitty Rose from the 30th Assembly District. State Representative John Murtha from the 29th Assembly District. State Representative Jeff Smith from the 93rd Assembly District, Eau Claire. On behalf of the university, I'm just very pleased that all of you could take time out of your schedules to be with us today and to reinforce for the board and then back to you the importance of this university at River Falls and the entire University of Wisconsin system. I'd also like to recognize Marjorie Bunce, the regional representative for Senator Herb Kohl. Marjorie. President Bradley, ladies and gentlemen, many of the people in this room today are individuals who, by what they do or by the organizations they represent, literally make it possible for this institution not only to achieve the goals of the past, but to be so bold as to plan the future. And I'd like to name some of those people. If you'd hold your applause to the end, I'd like you to stand as your name is read. Elaine Bauman, the principal of the River Falls High School. Bruce Barker, the incoming president for Chippewa Valley Technical College. John Bergerson, some of these people were here last night. Our advisory board for the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences. Leslie Bleskacek, the CVTC River Falls campus manager and member of the Pierce County EDC. Joe Bowles, partner in the law firm of Rodley, Bessler, Bowles, and Kruger, and a member of the UWRF Foundation Board. Roseanne Bump, the president of the River Falls Chamber of Commerce and the president of St. Croix Valley Tourism Alliance. Robert Casey of Wisconsin Credit Union in River Falls. Steve Zubay, Pierce County Economic Development Corporation, publisher of the Rivertown newspapers in River Falls, Hudson, New Richmond, and Ellsworth. Randy Farrow, president of River Falls Area Hospital, member of the College of Business and Economics Business Alumni Board. Chancellor Emeritus George Field. Ken Forsland, CEO, Designer Doors, and a member of our Business Alumni Board. Annette Frawley, attorney with General Mills Incorporated and a member of the UWRF Foundation Board. Marion Furlong, president and CEO of Hudson Hospital. David Griffith, president of the St. Croix Valley Community Foundation. Joe Heggie, vice president for education, the West Central Wisconsin PK16 Regional Consortium. Kim Heineman, president of the Hudson Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. Dale Hines, board of directors of XL Genetics. Mike Hodges, customer and renewable programs coordinator for WPPI. Bill Eilenfeld, the president of CVTC. Roger Laqueed, River Falls chief of police and co-chair of Governor Doyle's task force on campus safety with UW Green Bay's Chancellor Bruce Shepard. Jeff McCardle, Wisconsin Credit Union, member of our foundation board and a recipient of our Outstanding Service Award. Tom Paquet, vice president, customer services and administration for WPPI. Walter Perkins, UWRF Foundation Board. The mayor of River Falls, Don Richards. Patty Robertson, the vice president of St. Croix EDC Board of Directors. Nancy Sarno, GE Medical Protective UWRF Foundation Board. Jill Shannon, director of Community Partnership, St. Croix Valley Community Foundation. Steve Schrader, Rotary Club of River Falls. Anastasia Sharton, Fifth Center for the Arts. You met her yesterday in the introductory video as she spoke so eloquently about the university. Julia Tompkins, UWRF Cafes, College of Agriculture, Food and Environmental Science Foundation Board, and Bill Warner, the Pierce County EDC Executive Director. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our partners. Thank you all for coming.
You have received the written report of the, I think you did receive the written report of the Wisconsin Technical College System
Yes.
minutes,
Yes.
right? Any questions on the report? Regent Keene is not here, but other regents are members of that. Okay. Since our September meeting, a number of you have been continued to be advocates for our efforts to get a suitable budget for the UW system. I think in your folders is the copy of the article written by Regent Thomas in the Dunn County News and also the Superior Daily Telegram, in which she correlated the quality of the UW system education with the market value of a UW degree. Also, Regent Salas wrote a column for the Capital Times discussing the need of our capital projects, including the addition of academic buildings and residence halls. And Regents Falbo, Loftus, and Walsh advocated that the veterans' tuition remission be fully funded by the state in an article that was recently published. And I understand that Regent Rosenzweig is working on a column that we hope will be published in the coming weeks. And I know that a number of you also have had meetings with members of the legislature in urging them to adequately fund the UW system, and we appreciate all of those efforts. I'd now like to turn the program over to President Riley.
Thank you. Thank you, President Bradley. And I'll begin my report today by again welcoming the members of the UW River Falls community who are here to speak to the podium for a presentation on the collaborative efforts that the campus has sought out in the time when this St. Croix Valley that we're in is expanding at such a rapid rate. We'll hear from citizens representing a wide variety of interests, all of whom will discuss this campus's role in that expansion. So with that, I welcome back Chancellor Don Betts to the podium again to introduce this presentation.
Thank you, President Riley. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of the stars on this campus, our provost. Connie Foster has been an outstanding member of this faculty and this administration for many years, and right now she's serving as the provost of this university. For many years, those of you who've known her as the dean of the College of Education and Professional Studies. She is a great partner, and she's going to be introducing our other partners at this time. So, Connie.
Thank you, Chancellor Betts, and good morning and welcome. It is my privilege to introduce this session. I was thinking this morning driving into work that it was 2 years ago that Terry Brown, Dean of the College of Arts and Science, and I, then a Dean of Education, were invited to present to the Board of Regents on collaboration between Colleges of Arts and Sciences and Colleges of Education in teacher preparation. That was a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to share our work with the board at that time. The presentations this morning, however, focus on university collaboration and partnerships with community organizations and student involvement in service learning experiences. Some of you in the audience may have been here to hear David Ward's presentation on Wednesday afternoon at the I-94 Corridor Symposium that was held on campus. In his presentation, he listed a number of economic advantages of the I-94 corridor. One of these advantages is the establishment of cooperative partnerships. Yesterday morning in the presentation on serving and sustaining our communities, we were provided with many examples of partnerships developed around sustainability, with partnerships across organizations and the collaboration between numerous counties in Wisconsin working together to receive money from federal grants. Also yesterday in the presentation on LEAP, Liberal Education and America's Promise, the statement was made that in today's world, a liberal education relies on student engagement. More often, this comes in the form of service learning. A few examples of our partnerships and collaborations at UWRF include partnering with the arts and with the New York Times, working with communities in the area of economic development and the National Red Cross on emergency preparedness, providing internship opportunities for our students in businesses and nonprofit organizations, partnering with the K-12 schools on grants and teacher preparation. Our faculty and staff work with numerous community members, many of who are here today on advisory boards, really too numerous to list. In a time of limited resources, and as we look to solve difficult problems, the answer to how is usually who. Who will we partner? Who will be our partner? This morning we are excited to introduce to you a few of our community partners and one of our students who has been involved with both our Upward Bound program and a service learning project we call Falcon Tutors. To begin our program, I would like to introduce Dr. David Trechter. David is a professor and chairperson of the Department of Agricultural Economics at UWRF. He is also a statewide specialist with the University of Wisconsin Education Service and works in the area of cooperatives and rural development. He is director of our Survey Research Center here on campus, which employs students to do studies for local government, agencies, nonprofits, and academics. David.
Thank you, Provost Foster. It's my pleasure to moderate this panel, Living the Promise, the Collaborative Journey. The speakers you will hear from in a moment, as has already been alluded to, are simply representative of the many ways in which this campus is engaged in the region, the state, and beyond. The Wisconsin idea is alive and well on this campus. Today we will hear from representatives of local government, the business sector, nonprofits, and education. I will introduce all of the speakers in the order in which they will address you. We hope to have some time for questions at the end, so hold your questions until that time. The first speaker will be Roy Thilley, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Wisconsin Public Power Incorporated, where he has provided leadership to that organization since 1992. A native of New York, Roy did his undergraduate degree at Columbia and his law degree at UWRF's branch campus down in Madison. He was also a Peace Corps volunteer in the Philippines. He's an active member of numerous state and national organizations in the electric power industry and is co-chair of Governor Doyle's Task Force on Global Warming. Teresa Johnson will be our second speaker. Teresa is the chair of the town of St. Joe, member of the St. Croix River Crossing Stakeholder Committee, president of the Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative, and basically runs Western Wisconsin. Most importantly, Teresa is a graduate of UW-River Falls. Bill Rubin, since 1966, has been the executive director of the St. Croix County Economic Development Corporation. St. Croix County, as you know, is the fastest growing county in the state in terms of population, and Bill's work in assisting business expansions, retention of existing businesses, and recruitment of new firms has contributed greatly to the region's dynamism. John Potter is the Chief Executive Officer of the Phipps Center for the Arts in Hudson, a position he has held since 1985. He's also worked for the Playwright Center and the Guthrie Theater in the Twin Cities. John is very active in his community, has been a director of the River Valley's Arts Council, chairman and director of the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce, and past president of the Hudson Rotary Club. John received his BA in Theater and Drama from UW-Madison and his MFA from the University of Minnesota. Our final speaker is Karwi Marshall, a senior here at UW-River Falls with a major in Speech and Theater Arts. He is a graduate of Cooper High School in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Karwi has been working with the Upward Bound and Falcon Tutors program here at UW-River Falls and will share some of his experiences with that program. As many of you know, UW-River Falls also has an ongoing program with Vincent High School in Milwaukee. Both of these programs represent efforts by this university to reach out to historically underserved populations. Roy.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. Just very quickly, for those of you who are not aware, Wisconsin Public Power is a political subdivision of the state of Wisconsin formed under a special statute and owned by 41 Wisconsin communities that operate their own electric utilities. River Falls was a founding member of WPPI. We own coal-fired generation, gas, wind generation, and hydroelectric. We're also a very large purchaser. Our job is to provide a reliable source of energy for the long term for this community and to enable the local utility to provide excellent community customer service. We were delighted when the governor designated River Falls as one of the 4 campuses on his off-the-grid initiative. That designation coincided with a decision of our board of directors to substantially increase our efforts and commitment to conservation, efficiency, and community-based renewables. We increased our budget by 300% over 3 years. I would say that it is conservation and efficiency is absolutely essential to addressing the global climate change issue. We waste a tremendous amount of electricity as a society, and it is much cheaper to save a kilowatt hour than it is to build a power plant to generate a new one. We also view it as an essential service that our community utilities can provide, which is keeping bills down in a rising rate environment. We are in a rising rate environment and will continue to be in one for some time. And that keeping bills down is essential, I know, for your budget, for the public budgets of our schools, municipalities, for industry to remain competitive, and for electricity to be affordable to individuals. It's also essential for early action to address climate change because the changes that are occurring today are from the emissions 20 years ago. And so conservation and efficiency is what we can do now to address that issue. So when the governor made his announcement, we came up and met with Chancellor Betts and others and discovered, we're very pleased to see that they were strongly committed to the initiative and would provide excellent leadership, that they have a lot of expertise here, a lot of interest in partnering with us. We then went to DLA and to the Public Service Commission and got approval to move more quickly than the normal state process. Entered into a memorandum of understanding between the parties to proceed quickly to move forward on the governor's initiative. It was a unique opportunity, a little bit different than the other campuses, because of a community-based utility partnering with its largest customer. And so that has been the plan. Thus far, we have done the energy kiosk downstairs, which you've all seen, which is an educational effort. We have retained the Energy Center of Wisconsin to do a full-scale analysis, baseline analysis of the energy consumption on the campus, and to develop the metrics so that we can evaluate what we do, which is very important to do from the beginning of a process like that, and then to identify the projects that will have the most bang for the buck in meeting the goals. We also have a community-based wind initiative. We are part of some large wind farms, but we're also trying to do 30 megawatts within our member communities. We added River Falls to that group of communities, have completed virtual wind monitoring. We're pleasantly surprised that there are several sites in the community that show good promise, and now we're moving towards the next step, which is wind monitoring. We're also in the process of negotiating an agreement with the Department of Administration to sell a large block of renewable energy for this campus and other state facilities that we serve. Expect that to be done within the month and hopefully replaced over time by community-based renewables in this area. And then the next step, of course, is to implement the recommendations that the Energy Center comes up with in a collaborative effort with the faculty and administration here. But what I'd like to emphasize is that this is a two-way street. With the community-based utility backed by WPPI working with the university to meet its goals, and the university helping the community itself to become a model of energy conservation and efficiency. River Falls has volunteered to be a pilot for our 41 members. We also serve 9 in other communities out of state. And to demonstrate what can be achieved on conservation efficiency and the use of local renewable resources when there's a concerted community-wide effort led by community leaders from across the spectrum, public school, business community, and here, of course, the university, city council, and others. We have put that group together, and we hope to harness the energy of the university. It was one of the reasons that we chose River Falls for this project, to make the community a model for the state in terms of eliminating waste in energy consumption. River Falls, by the way, is already in the top 10 in the country in terms of percentage of individuals who purchase green power, and that does not count the fact that the students here have voted to purchase the energy for this building from our renewable energy program or the state block of power that we will be selling. So we're hoping to put River Falls up as #1 and #2 in the country in the use of renewable energy. I would also emphasize that the public schools are a key element in getting the university's help with the school system. We have developed a software program that we're piloting where the students will be able to monitor the consumption in the high school in a real-time basis, see exactly what happens when actions are taken, and make recommendations to the school board on how to save energy. It's our kids, frankly, and education that's going to make the difference in the climate change issue in the long term in the development of a conservation ethic, because it's we who drive the demand for electricity and transportation. In closing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Regents and the UW system for the invaluable assistance that you are providing to the Governor's Global Warming Task Force, both through the help of Kelly Kane here on what we can do to promote the local sustainability efforts, but also Louis Gilbert from the Nelson Institute, Paul Meyer from the Energy faculty in UW-Madison, and that interdisciplinary group that you have put together are helping us get the numbers right, the modeling done well, and keep the effort fact-based rather than an interest group negotiation, which is very, very important. And the UW is key to our success in achieving that. And going forward, you will be key because the solutions to these problems will involve a lot of research and development. And the university has a huge role to play there. So we're very grateful for the Chancellor's support to be able to work with the UW here and the system as a whole. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. It's great to be back on campus. The Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative was born right here on the campus of UW-Wisconsin River Falls. During the winter of 2004 and 2005, Ann Lydecker, the UW-RF's chancellor, held a series of listening sessions in Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties to learn about the pressing issues in this region. One of the themes that came through these sessions was the need for a mechanism for local governments to discuss and address regional issues. On March 7th of 2005, UWRF hosted a regional roundtable to present information about intergovernmental collaboratives in Wisconsin and elsewhere. The consensus opinion of the roundtable attendees was that an intergovernmental collaborative was needed, and UWRF was charged with convening and facilitating a working group to develop the structure for what has now become the Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative. An ad hoc working committee composed of local officials and UWRF faculty and staff, including Mark Kinder, Suzanne Hagen, Katrina Larson, and David Trechter, drafted articles of incorporation and bylaws that were discussed at the WWIC meetings and were adopted unanimously in March of '06. The purpose of this organization is to enhance the quality of life here in Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties of Wisconsin by providing a collaborative forum for its governmental jurisdictions, including the villages, cities, towns, and counties. The members to the organization share information, experiences, and best practices on key issues and problems. We serve as an issues clearinghouse. We engage in regional problem solving for such topics as dealing with wastewater, stormwater management, transportation, economic development, and creating sustainable communities. To develop a more visible regional identity and serve as a voice for this three-county region to influence public policy, and to help to provide advice and expertise by drawing upon the resources here of UW River Falls. UWRF affords us an existence that would otherwise not be possible through the sharing of services, personnel, and expertise to help this fledgling organization grow and develop. We live in the fastest growing area in Wisconsin. We are being impacted by the growth of the Twin City metro area throughout the St. Croix River Valley and to the east. The Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative fills a need in this area to allow the exchange of information among the 99 public entities in a manner that benefits many. We meet on a quarterly time schedule, and our recent meetings have had such topics as a presentation by Wisconsin DOT on the future projects to address traffic issues in this region, a legislative forum with the local state legislators and a roundtable discussion of needs and wants, wastewater treatment options for all public entities and how these can work together, and extraterritorial issues and resolutions. Our partnership with UW River Falls provides us with a nonpartisan foundation and a wealth of resources we would otherwise not have available to us. The staff and faculty who assist us in our mission are invaluable in their knowledge and vision. In addition, you provide us strength and name recognition in the Twin City Metro and the St. Croix River Valley. As the chair of the town of St. Joseph, which is a gateway into Wisconsin for the new St. Croix River crossing, I have been involved in the stakeholder meetings for this new bridge crossing. As part of that process, the Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative and UW River Falls were recognized as important components that could provide educational opportunities in this region to meet the needs of the public sector to manage the changes that would occur in this crossing. The stakeholder group identified the potential negative impacts to the area resources from the accelerated growth influenced by this project. The goal of the Memorandum of Understanding for the implementation of growth management and mitigation items was to promote natural, cultural, and historic resources, protect the St. Croix River watershed, and thus helping to preserve water quality and scenic values. As part of this project, $50,000 was allocated to UW River Falls to help meet this goal for the work done under the WWIC. These monies will help to facilitate regional intergovernmental coordination on use and environmental issues. The importance of this partnership between UW River Falls and WWIC was recognized both on a state and national level during this process. The Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative and I are excited about the future of our organization with the support and partnership of UW River Falls. Only through this collaboration are we in existence, able to meet the needs of the 99 public entities in this three-county region. Change is upon us, and the Western Wisconsin Intergovernmental Collaborative, in partnership with UW River Falls, is prepared to meet that challenge. Thank you. And next is Bill Rubin.
Teresa's comments are particularly meaningful in her elected role as chair of a local board, a town board in St. Croix County. She lives it and breathes it, and like many of her colleagues, understands community development is no small matter, considering St. Croix County consistently ranks in the top 100 list of fastest growing counties in the United States. Last spring, the Census Bureau reported St. Croix as the 81st fastest growing county by percentage increase of its population since 2000. And just last month, St. Croix was ranked 42nd fastest growing by percentage increase of new housing units since 2000. St. Croix historically is the only Wisconsin county to make these rankings, but if similar rankings were applied to regions, our 7 or 9 county region would certainly rank equally high. That's an important takeaway from today's meeting. This university plays an important role throughout the region with respect to community development, as Teresa indicated. It also plays an important role with economic development initiatives. In the good old days, economic development was all about business expansion and retention and recruitment and new business startups. Today, economic development aligns those activities with education, workforce, and community development. UW River Falls has significant involvement. Who will launch the next Microsoft, Medtronic, or GE Medical? We can only hope that this talent is somewhere in Wisconsin, preferably in the St. Croix Valley, and obtains business counsel from our Small Business Development Center on this campus. The SBDC provides outreach services to prospective entrepreneurs and existing businesses in Polk, St. Croix, and Pierce counties, all found along the Wisconsin-Minnesota border. In addition to its outreach and connecting clients with resources, the SBDC offers classroom-based entrepreneurial training programs. Graduates are better equipped to launch successful businesses following this training. The SBDC also functions as the registered agent for an angel network that serves this region. Development stage, technology-based companies regularly present their business cases to high net worth individuals where an equity stake, not debt, is sought. This equity injection comes at critical times for these companies. As they grow and roll out their products, many find roots and critical talent in the St. Croix Valley. This is good for the region. This is good for the state of Wisconsin. As you know, technology companies pay higher wages, and of course that is good for the region and good for the state. UW River Falls also played an important role in a successful application for a 6-county region to achieve one of the 8 technology zones designated in 2002. High-tech companies receive state tax credits that are tied to capital investment and job creation activities. I'm pleased to say that the St. Croix Valley, as well as the 6-county I-94 technology zone, are getting their share of tax credit awards. The middle picture in this slide is that of Governor Doyle with the founders of Sagen Incorporated, based here in River Falls. Another technology company known as Interfacial Solutions received tax credits for its project earlier this past summer. Its founder, Dr. Jeffrey Cernhaus, is an alum of UW River Falls. Municipal officials like Teresa and communities in the St. Croix Valley regularly rely on the collection of data through the university's Survey Research Center. Their work is economical, statistically sound, and delivered on time. Reflective work products include surveys on labor, downtown parking issues, comprehensive land use plans, and the impact of tourism. The campus also operates a center for economic research. It provides an outlet for the faculty, for staff, and for student research efforts. The center represents another resource geared toward economic development. Regional cooperation is advertised as the next big thing and provides numerous opportunities for multiple counties to work together. The forerunner of regional cooperation was the multi-county technology zones of 2002 that I described earlier. This past spring, 7 counties in west central Wisconsin found enough in common to voluntarily transfer their loan funds, sometimes referred to as revolving loan funds, into a consolidated regional fund. The next big thing, I believe, is the Governor's Business Council. Quarterly meetings of the Business Council will enable multi-county regions, the likes of the Milwaukee 7, New North, and Centergy, to discover best practices involving education, workforce development, and long-range planning. These regions have successfully aligned education with workforce, economic development, tourism, and technology. At present, our region is not Business Council eligible, but work is underway to achieve this. The driving forces to make that happen are the UW campuses, including the leadership at this campus, plus the technical colleges and the countywide EDCs. As we work together, one publication reported that we are building what? Economic clout, perhaps something that has been missing throughout this region. I'm confident that our region will find its rightful place on the Governor's Business Council and that UW River Falls will continue to lend its support and expertise to this process. In closing, I believe you've gotten a taste of the economic development opportunities that abound in our region and the resources that UW River Falls provides. In economic development endeavors, I count on UW River Falls as my partner, and I look forward to continued partnerships into the future. Next, I would like to introduce John Potter, the Executive Director of the Phipps Center for the Arts.
Thank you, Bill. In order to provide some context, let me first tell you a bit about the Phipps Center for the Arts in Hudson, whose mission is celebrate the creative spirit. Last season, the center attracted over 21,000 people from throughout the St. Croix Valley to 136 performances. Over 1,900 attended a variety of visual arts events. Over 3,700 students participated in classes, workshops, and lessons. Approximately 3,800 Valley residents came to 68 community rental activities. In addition, over 600 volunteers contributed 41,000 hours of support in 2006. The Phipps has had a close working relationship with over a dozen UWRF faculty and staff, half a dozen student interns, and 10 formal institutional collaborations since opening in 1983. All have been rewarding and fruitful beyond the projects themselves. I'd like to start with the faculty relationships. 6 art professors have all had exhibitions in our galleries, and many have been involved in planning and jurying shows. Professor Emeritus Bill Ammerman was the center's Visual Arts Council coordinator and served on the board of directors for 6 years. Theater arts faculty have offered guidance, recommended and mentored student directors and designers, and staged and designed many productions for the Phipps themselves. I've had the opportunity to direct for both the UWRF Theater Arts Department and the St. Croix Valley Summer Theater. The journalism department provided 4 marketing interns to work on the center's publicity and promotion. Finally, Associate Professor of Music Dr. Kristen Chernahoy served as a Phipps Director at Large for 6 years, and Dr. Gordon Heedall, as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, served on our board for 4 years. I'd now like to address the institutional support. In 1994, the university, the Phipps Center, and area chambers of commerce helped found the St. Croix Valley Regional Tourism Alliance, a bi-state tourism marketing group. Mark Kinders, UWRF Director of Public Affairs, has been the driving force behind this organization since its inception. Throughout the years, the university has offered various in-kind services to the Alliance, which received a Best Practice Award at Synergy 2003, a 9-county economic development conference. The Alliance has received numerous other recognitions while becoming a national model. When the university was the lead organizer for the Synergy conference several years ago, the center was chosen to host the 2-day event. Also, the center was the only off-site location for one of Chancellor Betz's inaugural celebration events. In 2006, Dr. T.H. Bachman presented a free public lecture on Sir Ernest Shackleton entitled The Imperial Transatlantic Expedition. The Phipps collaborated with UWRF art professor Dr. Lynn Jamal on the Crayola Dreammakers exhibition and related programs in 1994, 1996, and 1998. This was a national program sponsored by Binney and Smith to promote the importance of art education in the schools by showcasing the work of children. The center displayed work by elementary-age students from the 11-state region. Children and their families from throughout the region came to participate at the reception. Beginning in 2002, UWRF, along with 10 other partners, has sponsored a series of community fora, art exhibitions, and related events on the changing nature of the valley. Collaborators included the St. Croix Valley Community Foundation, the St. Croix Scenic Coalition, the National Park Service, St. Croix National Scenic Riverway, the Wisconsin Academy of Arts, Sciences, and Letters, Art Reach Alliance in Arcola Mills in Stillwater, Minnesota, the St. Croix Art Barn in Osceola, Hammond Arts Alliance, Community Arts Base in River Falls, and the Phipps Center. The events held at the center bridge art and academics. Art becomes a catalyst for community conversation. The Bench Project, a public art project coordinated by the Phipps in partnership with the St. Croix Valley Community Foundation, was a result of these community fora. The project completed its pilot year with the unveiling of 3 benches designed and built by members of the community in Hudson and St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, as well as Bayport, Minnesota. Dr. Jamal and graduates of the UWRF Art Education Program were instrumental in crafting the Hudson Bench. Last year, Dr. Terry Brown, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, served on the steering committee for a year-long study by DC-based Americans for the Arts, which measured the economic impact of 92 nonprofit arts, historical, and cultural organizations in 5 counties of the St. Croix Valley. The university assisted in implementing this survey, which found that these organizations inject $16.5 million into the region's economy, support almost 400 full-time jobs, generate $1.58 million in annual government revenues, and create event-related spending that directly impacts the bottom line of local businesses. To quote Chancellor Betts, "This study underscores that our valley and our avid support of the full spectrum of the arts produces economic, cultural, and civic dividends. For a vibrant quality of life and a vital creative economy, the arts matter." End quote. On behalf of the Phipps Center for the Arts and a multitude of nonprofit organizations, I want to thank the Regents for allowing UWRF to be such a generous and invaluable partner and collaborator. It's now my pleasure to introduce Karwi Marshall, a senior in Speech and Theater Arts.
Good morning, and welcome to University of Wisconsin River Falls. I'm Karwi Marshall, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Falcon Tutor Program and Upper Bound Program. Upper Bound is a federal Department of Education program that helps kids achieve their goals of going to college. The program serves low-income and first-generation students from Arlington High School in St. Paul, Minnesota. Falcon Tutoring is a program that serves Arlington High School in 3 different K-12 schools in St. Paul: Eastern Heights Elementary, Highwood Hills Elementary, and Washington Technology Magnet. Falcon Tutors came about due to the strong need for tutors at Arlington High School and eventually expanded to Washington Tech, Eastern Heights, Highwood Hills. I've been involved with the Upper Bound program for the past 3 years. In the summer, I work as an RA in the dorms for the summer camp, and during the school year, I work as a student assistant. Some of my duties include working with students on days they don't have school, help plan college tours, and being a mentor. I'm also what I would like to call it, a big brother. I'm able to show kids that I'm not different from them. I come from the same struggle they face. I can also show that if I can make it, so can they. Falcon Tutoring in Upper Bound has affected the students because it has given students a chance to get tutoring after school 4 times a week. It also gives students a chance to work on not just only schoolwork, but college applications, ACT prep, and preparation for Minnesota standard tests. Upper Bound has affected me in 4 different ways. 1, it is a family away from home. 2, it is a family that has given me a chance to learn life skills that I can take with me after college. 3, it is a family that has opened my mind to new and creative ideas. 4, opportunities I would have probably never gotten, like when we took our summer trip to Yellowstone National Park. Lastly, Upper Bound is a family that I feel as if I'm wanted and is able to build great relationships with people. Upper Bound and Falcon tutors make a difference to students because both programs are easy access to help them grow academically and mentally. Upper Bound provides a chance to increase the number of diversity students on campus by recruiting kids to come to the University of Wisconsin River Falls. People may consider Upper Bound to be just a program, but to me, it's a family, or it's my fraternity. It has helped me stay on top of school and decisions I make in life. Knowing that kids are watching and looking up to you, it motivates me to work harder at everything I do. Upper Bound has impacted many of their students. For example, Vang Laura, who was a senior at UWRF, was a part of Upper Bound. Throughout his high school years and after graduating from high school, he continued to work for Upper Bound as an RA. During the summer program, Vang Laura has shown great leadership skills here on campus. Last April, he was awarded with the Chancellor Award. Vang has been a great role model to the Upper Bound kids, helping with tutoring and being a mentor. His younger brother, Paul Lord, is an Upper Bound student and will be graduating from Arlington High School this May. And he's on the right path, just like his brother. Erica Shaw and Omar Perez are two examples of students who have come to UWRF to achieve their goals. 3 years ago, when I first met the two, they were young and confused about college. But by working with them over the years, I saw the maturity level build up in them. Their desire to go to college became greater. Seeing the two of them on campus now brings me great joy, knowing that Upper Bound and Falcon Tutors' hard work has paid off. Upper Bound and Falcon Tutors are making a difference in both the student it serves and the students who provide service. UWRF is sending out educators who are prepared to teach and prepared to serve all students. Falcon Tutors and Upper Bound help to build relationships with people from various backgrounds and shows that UWRF cares about the surrounding community as a whole. Arlington students are able to experience a connection with people who aren't necessarily like them who care. Upper Bound and Falcon tutors show Arlington and St. Paul students that college is more attainable. In my conclusion, as a team, we encourage each other to dare to dream about attaining college. Thank you.
All of these presentations demonstrate the reality that UW River Falls is truly engaged in our region. The faculty, staff, and students bring our expertise to these partnerships. But more importantly, I think we learn a huge amount from our work with these organizations. Together, we're making this a very exciting corner of the state. I think we have time for a few questions, if there are any. Yes.
I have a question for Bill Rubin. I'm very impressed with the economic and business development activities in which UW River Falls is a partner, and I was puzzled though why it is that the region is not eligible for the governor's business council. What factors need to go into that? What needs to change in order for that to occur?
With the executive order that was used to create the business council, there were one or two elements that went with that executive order, one of which was to be business council eligible, you had to have 5 counties, at least 5 counties. And of that, in that organization, 50% of the funds had to be, 50% of any board had to be private sector, 65% of the funds had to come from the private sector as well. The existing multi-county regional organization today consists of 4 counties. So we're working now, is 5 the right number? And it's our general conclusion that it probably is better served if it's something akin to a 7 or a 9 county region. So we're not quite there yet. We're working on all of those things, and it's my opinion and others that we're going to get there by the end of the year.
Good. Thank you.
Next question.
Over here.
Jeff, we're having a similar discussion in La Crosse in our area about getting on the Governor's Business Council, but we're working on it too. What strikes me since I've been here and reading about this region is, of course, the growth that was described in all of one of the fastest growing counties in the areas in the state and maybe the nation. And whether the panelists or even Don can answer this, what impact really does the growth have on what we're doing here at UW River Falls? Because the tremendous growth, and many of the people, as I heard this morning at breakfast and other places, some living and working in Minnesota, living here, some working here. What impact does this tremendous growth have on what we're doing here at UW River Falls?
Fundamentally, it's like watching the balloon being blown up until if you put in one more bit of breath, it's going to pop. You talk about the relationship between resources, whether they be human or otherwise, to the task at hand. There isn't any one of us along this road here that can't speak to that eloquently. We don't have the resources we need to get the job done, and the number of people who are looking and seeking higher education is obviously proliferating. We believe we're really in stride and in tandem with your growth agenda. We believe we can really live that growth agenda here, but it's very difficult to do without the kind of resource base that we're looking for. We don't have enough of the financial aid opportunities for students as well in terms of scholarships, et cetera. We're working very hard on the private side to bring some of that money in, but we need more public help in that regard as well. I know that all of us face that. The difference is that the pressure, as I talked about the other day about looking west and seeing the lights, the pressure is growing. And by that amoeba sort of graph you saw earlier, you can see that it's continuing. In fact, it's sort of wrapping itself right around us at this particular point. You know that the county line between St. Croix and Pierce literally bisects this community. So when you're talking about St. Croix County, you're talking about half of us as River Falls, even though this campus physically sits in Pierce County. These two counties are really married. So I think that's the way I would answer what you'd ask. Thank you.
We think that is an embrace and not an anaconda that's I think we have time for one more question.
Dave, is Carly still here? Carly, I just wanted to say that I one time had your job. I was a tutor in an Upward Bound program in New York City when I was an undergraduate in college, and it was one of the things that helped impel me into a career in university teaching and administration. So I hope something wonderful like that might happen to you, as well as all the good you're doing for your students. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the partners that are here and here for giving you a sense of what we're about as an institution outside the walls and the confines of the university boundaries. I couldn't be prouder of what they were speaking about, and each one began to tell the story. It's almost like it's a continuing revelation of how many ways an institution can, in fact, find its way into the nook and crannies of a society. We're really in and of this place, as I tried to say yesterday, from the days in the 1870s until now. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I in my introductions earlier, listening to Roy Philly, I realized that one of the introductions I didn't include, which was my concern, was our great partner in the triangle relationship here in the community, and that is the River Falls Municipal Utility. And I think Carl Galke is here. Carl, are you here? Please stand up. It's Carl Galke. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I mentioned briefly that I considered this to be an intensely human enterprise at the university. I believe that our legacy is linked to the thousands who have walked these grounds and sat in these classes, benefited from our educational efforts in council, enjoyed the fruit of good work and the fuller expression of what it means to be a decent contributing member of society. But sometimes, however, they leave us too soon. Sometimes, without warning, fate snatches them from us. One such tragedy occurred here, as it has happened to all of my fellow chancellors, as we ended our whirlwind spring semester. At that time, we, his family, and the world lost David Bedeau. He was not yet 20 years old. As I tried to make sense of this personally, I was fortified and refocused later by a note that I received. It was addressed to me, but actually intended for our faculty and staff, the life force of any institution. And I'm just going to quote from the parent's note quite briefly. David found a home at UWRF and was so happy. He was immediately drawn into the academic life by the professors who took a genuine interest in David. He loved to work, he loved to learn and to work hard. He also played hard and made close friends at UWRF. So many have written me telling me what it meant to have him as a friend. His friends got David involved in intramural sports, taught him how to skate, and even got him to stop thinking so much about band, and he actually started playing basketball. He was trying new things. Please extend our gratitude to the UWRF faculty and staff for sharing their enthusiasm for learning with our dear son. Any one of the chancellors could read you a similar note. And it reminds me about the impact that we have. It also reminds me that in losing David, it was a moment for me, and I think for many of us, to reaffirm the purpose of this work. It's sort of like a mid-course correction on a space shot to Mars. Each one of us, each in our own way, has to ask and attempt to answer the perennial and vexing question, what is it that we're doing here? Well, we at UWRF and the other UW institutions are among the leading assets that Wisconsin possesses to actively create its future. When Wisconsin does identify its BHAG, that is, its big, hairy, audacious goal, as defined by Jim Collins in Good to Great, we, our UW institutions, will be among the major actors, translating it from pipe dream or proclamation into palpable reality. We will be there, as we have been since 1874, to help students learn. But now we are to live this promise of learning and opportunity in an expanded global context, with new tools and competitors and proliferating challenges. Today we are affirming our role to be a shaper of society, to do what we do here, and by what we do and what our graduates, schooled, contoured, and inspired by those at our institutions, do with their lives. Our intentions are clear. We have asserted that we are going to create a culture of learning so nimble, balanced, integrated, and purposeful that most of our graduates will in fact live the promise and become productive, creative, ethical, and engaged. They will model the way as highly productive, exemplary citizens, great neighbors, caring parents, building sustainable communities. Some will be urged on to lead by what we do and by who we are, faculty and staff alike. Others will follow faculty into a discipline or interest because someone was modeling the way and someone was encouraging the heart. And they will come to know some on campus as models of integrity. They will sense our passion for learning and couple it with an equal passion for applying the lessons of that learning to the world around them, a world whose challenges do not stop at a state's border nor at the water's edge. The world of the next 60 years will morph and change and contort in ways and at a pace and in a volume beyond what we've imagined and what we've experienced in our time. And because of the good people here and of the values of institutions like UW River Falls, they will learn by example that they have a duty to prepare the next generation in precisely the same way. They, like those before us, will leave that woodpile a little bit higher than they found it. It's our opportunity and our duty to prepare them for civic responsibility and for a future that we do not and cannot know for certain right now. And that is why we begin and began with values, with habits, and with a culture of learning. These we do know. If we do this right, if we have consistent access to the necessary resources and support, then this attitude and climate, this perspective and intention may be the greatest gift we could ever hope to offer and the most enduring legacy we could leave behind. For they will leave us opened to the life-changing and life-affirming power of learning. And then they, each in their own way, will have a chance to make this state and this planet a better, more livable, more sustainable, more tolerant, and more caring place. We are saying that we will have the opportunity, and they will have the opportunity to leave here with insight and curiosity, with persistence, information, passion, and with public purpose. And that's the reason why we do this work every day. why we plan, why we collaborate, why we celebrate their successes when the tales of our former students come back to us. We laud not just what they've accomplished, but who they have become. Such moments, as all of you know, is the stuff of pure joy. In this way, I believe that we demonstrate the power of learning and that we are living the promise of our mission and of all of education. And increasing collaboration with our UW system partners, our partners in St. Croix Valley and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, we are consciously growing the next Wisconsin by graduating productive and creative, ethical and engaged citizens and leaders with an informed global perspective. President Bradley, members of the Board of Regents, on behalf of all of my colleagues at UW River Falls, I thank you for the opportunity to have offered you a snapshot in time of a UW River Falls in motion, and importantly, a vision of what we intend to accomplish in a highly collaborative and interconnected way. We genuinely and dearly appreciate the support that this board has extended to us. It's been our honor to host you and the members of the board for this October meeting. We look forward to your next visit, but let's wait a few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don, and thanks to all your wonderful partners. I think this panel made the point very persuasively that this university is very, very much engaged in the positive development of the city and its region, and the partners made that point very eloquently. One of the things that happens in that kind of engagement is a two-way flow of value or of benefit, so that the university, in partnership with local folks, contributes to the development of the region, but also our students then get the benefits of that engagement as part of their education. What we want to do now is talk a little bit about some of that and what students give back to their local communities, doing the work that they do as volunteers and in their service learning opportunities. One of the really positive developments of this whole effort at civic engagement that universities have been involved in over the last decade or so has been much higher levels of service learning. Students out in their local communities, sometimes out around the country or even indeed internationally, involved in various kinds of projects where they're helping local people, they're helping local communities develop, but they're also learning. And that experience then becomes part of their University of Wisconsin degree experience. Chancellor Jack Keating at UW Parkside brought the Campus Compact to this state a number of years ago, still serves on the board, and that's all about service learning. It's a national movement that we're proud to be part of. A number of months ago, really longer ago than we were planning this meeting, I saw an article about some of the UW River Falls students who had been down working, I think maybe in New Orleans or maybe it was Georgia, on a Habitat for Humanity project, and they had done this over one of their break times. And you have seen some of it. I see a lot of it coming across my desk about students from all of our campuses who are engaged in these projects constantly around the state and increasingly around the globe. We don't often think about the combined impact of that, of the work our students do on behalf of their communities, on behalf of all sorts of good efforts around the globe. I think today's a good time that we might think about that, and that indeed we might take a moment to honor that, because it's an important part of who our students are, of what they're becoming as University of Wisconsin students, and of who they'll be after they graduate, hopefully by virtue of these experiences, much more engaged citizens. So with that, I want to turn the podium over to Regent Colleen Thomas, who will introduce a special resolution for you to consider. Regent Thomas.
Good morning. We've had a terrific reception here at River Falls and a chance to hear from several students who have done some great great work around the world and really engaged in cross-cultural interactions and service learning. And as a veteran of some trips myself, I can speak to the importance of these programs as a way to develop relationships with our peers while we are also learning about the world. And as much as we put out and as students put forth into the world and give to the world, I think it's been very clear in the candid reflections of those students here that students also bring a lot back. And the lessons that we bring back from those trips are also very important to the learning we do on campuses, and that's so apparent here. So this is really a reflection of the Wisconsin idea, as the Wisconsin idea goes past just the boundaries of the state, but to the world now. So thank you for that. And here's the resolution. Whereas the University of Wisconsin River Falls has presented a number of wonderful examples of student civic engagement to members of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents throughout their October meeting, and whereas the student civic engagement work at UW River Falls exemplifies the outstanding contributions made by students at all UW system institutions, and whereas students at all UW institutions strengthen the fabric of Wisconsin communities through their service learning, community service, and volunteer activities, and whereas faculty and staff across the UW system serve as facilitators for much of the civic engagement work of UW system students, thus contributing in their own right, and whereas building stronger communities is one of the cornerstones of President Riley's vision for the UW system, and whereas civic engagement has been identified as an essential learning outcome in the Association of American Colleges and Universities Liberal Education and America's Promise campaign, in which the UW system is a proud pilot partner. And whereas the Board of Regents and UW system institutions recognize both the educational and the societal benefits of student civic engagement in fulfillment of institutional missions and the Wisconsin idea, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System extends its sincere gratitude, appreciation, and recognition to students and the faculty and staff who support them across the UW system for their civic engagement contributions to local, state, and global communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Thomas, and we'll have the minutes reflect that that resolution was approved by acclamation. And now President Riley will introduce a discussion on an update of our Advantage Wisconsin strategic framework that we started last month.
You'll recall at the September meeting that I presented then as the basis for development of a system-level strategic framework to further our ability to advantage our state's future in a knowledge-based and increasingly global economy, a plan and a framework that we discussed. I further pointed out that this framework, when developed, we hope do several things, and just let me mention three of them. One, would strengthen the collective agenda across the system for realizing our shared vision to Advantage Wisconsin, which I think is the name we're using for this exercise now, Advantage Wisconsin. Two, we hoped it would create the framework, indeed, to add value to the execution of our individual campus strategic plans. We want this to be an umbrella strategic plan which complements and contains, in effect, the strategic plans that each of our institutions has and works with. And three, we want this framework to provide a context for future system-wide direction and development and decision-making that will advance that shared vision. We discussed last month a process we plan to utilize to enrich the 7 core strategies which we laid out to you as part of the strategic framework between now and February. I would like to ask Senior Executive Vice President Don Mash to come forward now to talk a little bit about the progress that we've made since we introduced this to you last month till now. Don.
Good morning. Thank you, President Riley, Regent Bradley, members of the board, chancellors, your leadership teams. special guests. I want to talk with you a little bit this morning about the effort that's now underway that we've been building upon to develop a strategic framework for the UW system's collective work. Chancellor Betts was very eloquent in talking about and demonstrating the impact of UW River Falls here in this region of the state. Were you in any other region of the state listening to one of the other chancellors, you would be hearing the same sort of impact. All of our campuses have dynamic strategic plans that are underway, and they're making a difference where they work and the lives that they touch. What we are attempting to do at the system level is to create a framework to add oomph to the collective work of the system and all of its moving parts, and President Riley described that well. What you see before you is what we're calling our strategic framework. The strategic framework has 7 core strategies. Now, these 7 core strategies have emerged out of countless discussions over much time. I'm going to say 5, 6, 7, 8 years that I have been a part of these planning discussions and retreats. When the Regents retreated in July, we talked about their prior work and discussions and how they have led to the development of the framework. In past discussions of core values, quality, access, affordability, and of course, ultimately, helping to create as best we can, doing our part, a bright future for the state of Wisconsin. These core strategies are our work to date, and I want to talk with you this morning about how we are going to enrich these core strategies over the next few months in order to put in place an enriched framework that will serve us for many biennia. What you're looking at, of course, is the display of the 7 core strategies. I just want to say a word about each of those. Preparing students, of course, central to what we're doing and our eventual impact. Translating the work that we do with our students, and the research that accompanies it, the advantage to Wisconsin going forward. People, more graduates, jobs, high-paying jobs, enriching the tax base, and of course strengthening our communities across the state. In order to do all of this, we need to have dynamic enabling strategies. And you see 3 of our core strategies related to enabling resources, balance, diversify, and grow our financial resources while we develop our human talent. We know and we understand that we must maximize all potential revenue sources. We had a long discussion yesterday about the impact of our GPR piece. Of course, that's the state budget. But tuition revenues have to be dealt with well. Our financial aid must complement the tuition piece. Our external gifts and grants, our private fundraising, our own program revenue activities, all of these things need to be brought to bear in the matter of resources. In addition, we've got to operate efficiently and effectively, and that's the operational excellence piece of this. And then finally, collaboration, partnerships, how we're going to leverage what we do by working well with others, all of which would create, we think, an enriched framework that would advantage Wisconsin. Now, I'm going to move to the second slide here, I think. Do I have to point this somewhere? Nope, I just went too far. There we go, got it. I want you to look at this for a second, if you would. This happens to be what is now a draft visual of the homepage that we will have in our website that's going to accompany our work and our conversations internally and around the state. It is advantage.wisconsin.edu. It'll be a part of the University of Wisconsin website. But I show it now, and I'm going to come back to it later, because I want to focus on what we're now saying, and we're still working with the wording here, as a way of saying, why now? What's the strategic framework development about, and why are we doing it now? What is the sense of urgency about it? Let me just take a minute if I can, because we think this is important. We want you to hear it as well as read it. Advantage Wisconsin captures the response of UW system campuses across Wisconsin to the state's urgent need to revitalize its economy, better educate its residents, and strengthen its communities. The UW system's core strategies to Advantage Wisconsin will enhance the success of the state's businesses, residents, and students in an increasingly global, multicultural, and competitive world. Wisconsin's transformation into a knowledge-based economy is proceeding too slowly, leading the state's economy to lag behind Minnesota and other states' economies. Without change, we will have too few college-educated workers and an increasingly older population. State and community tax bases will be inadequate to care for seniors and others in need, invest in children and young adults, and maintain Wisconsin's high quality of life. Change is needed now, and we then go on and talk about the programs and our attempt to try to do what we can do to do our share, and we think it's a big share of what the state requires for a bright future. When President Riley introduced this discussion at our prior meeting, he reviewed all of the data that we've been reviewing over a number of years. You heard Dennis Jones's presentation in July, placing Wisconsin into a national context and looking at Wisconsin and how it stacks up. And what we saw were many deficiencies that we've talked about time and time again. More graduates being required, of course, being one of those. So there is a sense of urgency. There needs to be a BHAG and a collective vision about what might happen and should happen in Wisconsin long term, and we're trying to focus our attention now on that challenge. What you see now in front of you is a process that we're using to pursue an enriched strategic framework. Take those 7 core strategies and try to determine what are the most compelling ways that we can take those strategies and enact them at the UW system level, on our campuses, and across the state. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, you will see mentioned 7 cross-campus internal and external think tanks, 1 for each core strategy. Now, Regents, you have in your packets a listing of those think tank teams that will be beginning work within a week or 2 in terms of their first meeting. Cross-campus, the individuals who make up these think tank teams were selected, and they represent campuses across the UW system. Each think tank team also has a couple of chosen external members to try to create the right kind of mix in what we hope will be great conversation, looking at some of the basis of the conversation and attempting to come up with what that group thinks would be the very best ideas to inform a particular core strategy. Now, while that is happening, we will be having other conversations. Each of the campuses will be engaged in conversation. Some of our governance groups across the UW system, for example, our provost will be actively engaged, our chief student affairs officers will be tapping into others on the campus, asking them to look at the 7 core strategies, which you saw earlier, and give us some of their best thinking as well. So as we move down through the boxes on the left-hand side of the column, you get some indication of how this 2 to 3 month effort is going to unfold. Now, I want to mention that as a part of the process and as a deliverable in February, when we come back to you with the result of this work, you are also going to hear recommendations about the matters of approaches to tuition and financial aid and the role and mission of the UW colleges. Those 2 important topics have task forces at work sorting through that information. They are not to be confused with one of the 7 think tank teams that's looking at the core strategies. But if we go back for a second to the core strategies, when President Riley, Regents, chancellors are out speaking and interacting with chambers, rotaries, and many other groups, and as you know, they do a lot of this. This has been designed so that that particular slide can be utilized as a discussion piece, as a part of a presentation, and then simply listening to the audience react. And we'll be listening carefully to what we're hearing. And eventually, we're going to bring all of the external conversation as well as the internal conversation together. One of the things that you will notice on the very bottom right of the slide, the website is going to be an interactive website, and we're going to be using that actively. Our campuses will also have the ability to engage students, their parents, and others in this discussion. One of the things I've noted to the right on the bottom, the UW College's extension activity, we have an extension location in every county in the state. We're going to have a day of conversation in every county, essentially at the same time, and that's being set up in a way to listen to citizens across the state as well, provide public input. In December 18, January 18, we are going to engage in day-long processing of all of the rich ideas that have come in to inform the 7 core strategies and try to develop what we think are the best ideas, package them and bring them to you in February for your review. When we talk about the leadership team retreats, we're talking about the chancellors, President Riley's cabinet, and our intensive work in trying to bring some focus to this system-wide activity. So that process essentially is where we are, where we're going, and what we're doing. I mentioned that the think tank teams are going to begin their work within a week or 2. Each team has a team leader who has been or soon will be oriented to the work Each team has 2 facilitators who will help to be resource people in terms of data to help to enrich the discussion. These meetings are going to occur in Madison, but participants will have the ability to participate by telephone as well. And we're trying to figure out how to manage this in a way that actually makes it manageable given the number of people that we have. From your standpoint, Regents, you are going to be involved and hear about progress at each succeeding meeting between now and February, perhaps in one of your committees, perhaps as a group, the whole, and we'll try to think strategically about the pieces of the process and what we're learning and what we're thinking that might be best to air with you at that particular time. In addition, you're also going to be aware of the meeting times of all the think tank sessions, and if you care to, you may participate in any one of them or all of them. And of course, the website is going to have material posted continuously, as well as some of the material we're getting from external sources as well. So that will be active and keep people informed as well. So at this particular point in time, we are culminating the planning of the process, and we're ready to move forward and begin to engage the conversation of others as we continue to sort through some way of collectively capturing the momentum and the power of the UW system for the state of Wisconsin. With that, I'm going to conclude my remarks. I'd be happy to respond to a question or two if there are any.
Questions? Regent Salas? Yes, Senior Vice President Nash, I just wanted to refer to the third page, that is in regards to the tuition and the UW colleges task forces. Those are two distinct task forces, correct?
Yes.
Good. And in regards to the one that's being formed to address the issue of tuition, I wonder if you wouldn't consider other fee structures that impact the cost of attending our UW system, or that is the segregated fees, increases in the residential room and board, tax rental, in other words, other costs that are part of the total cost of attending one of our campuses at our UW systems, rather than just the tuition per se.
Well, Regent Salas, thank you. Several people are listening carefully to your comments. That particular think tank team has been at work for weeks and includes a couple of regions. I think they have broadly looked at the cost and affordability issue in the matter of tuition / financial aid. But I'm going to assume that Deborah Durkin, Frida Harris, Regents Crane, and Regents Falbo have heard you make that comment. They are a part of that think tank team.
Right. And further, the area of capital projects isn't specifically addressed, although there are different areas in the think tanks where it could be addressed, or that is jobs being one of them, where those matters could be addressed. In segregated fees, that when we think in terms of building our residence halls or facilities like these, where students have to consider additional increases on fees to enjoy these facilities, could be another area. But I think it should be addressed, Vice President Nash. It's important to come up with something as part of this strategic planning to address those issues.
I've made a note of that. I can see where we could explicitly mention facilities development in the core strategies page.
Regent Rosenzweig.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to compliment you because it looks like an intriguing process. However, I couldn't help but think of our last conversation at the board, and reading the minutes over, I thought it reflected a good conversation about how the board wanted to proceed. And it was my understanding, and forgive me if I misread it or misunderstood it, but it was my understanding that there was to be a document brought back to us for review, and that then we would proceed given the comments. So I am just kind of curious, for instance, I mean, if we had had a chance to look at perhaps who's participating in some of the think tanks, and it sounds like you're well on your way to already meeting or to convening the meetings, I would think that, for instance, collaborations would have a broader range of partners and so on, so that, I guess I use the expression, to get a breath of fresh air or other kinds of views. As we're going to public comment, it seems to me that you want to have, or perhaps should consider, a broader array of folks from out of the immediate area, immediate university. I guess I'm concerned, I wonder, are these closed now, or this is a done deal and you have no opportunity to suggest things, or how is this going to proceed?
Well, a couple things. As I think I've mentioned a couple of times, what you see here, even in terms of the homepage of the website, draft, current thinking, and there is an opportunity to make a suggestion or two that would change some aspect of this. I just acknowledged Regent Salas's comment that we probably should make sure that we don't lose sight of the importance of facilities development.
Okay.
So in terms of suggesting additional participation, individuals, we're certainly open to that. That's the reason we have brought this to you today. However, we are going to schedule the meetings and move forward with the folks that we have.
Of course.
The one comment I would want to make, Regent Rosenzweig, in terms of those we would collaborate with, even though the think tank team membership, which you're looking at, may not name some individuals of the sort that you may be thinking about, it is our intention, for example, to deal with some existing partners that we all acknowledge and get in front of them with some conversation about this. The PK16 Council, for example, comes to mind, the Wisconsin Technology Council, Competitive Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Higher Education Business Roundtable. These sorts of groups will have, if they'll have us, a presentation and an opportunity to respond. But they haven't necessarily been named to the think tank teams.
If I may, just to continue, if it is possible, and I don't have names yet, but I would like to continue that conversation, and perhaps there would be an opportunity for me to give you a name or two on the collaborations. What I fear is, frankly, that those folks that we collaborate with currently in the academic world will somehow feel as if it's a closed shop, even though you do seek to have them give a presentation. So there may be some partners in which you want to engage from the very beginning, so that there's a clear understanding of when we put together the roles and responsibilities, the charge, if you will, that they're included.
Sure. I think the question of timing of that kind of exchange and the form of it is the issue, and would be more than happy to hear any suggestions that you might have and do what we can to accommodate those.
Thank you.
Regent Green.
I want to say two things. One, that I appreciate the opportunity for us to sit in on meetings and that sort of thing, because that will be helpful, I think, to us as we follow this along. And I just want to make a plea for, as we interpret this, to somehow in the prepare students box on the first page, we have that we are helping students succeed in and contribute to. And then in the next page, when that box appears, it's without the contribute to, so the society. And that may have just been shorthand, but a second comment along those same lines is around the high-paying jobs. And I somehow would like to get language in there about the contributions that jobs make to the society, in addition to the fact that they're high-paying. As we've listened to the profound statements of students in these last 2 days, they have talked about their learning in terms of making contributions to the society. And certainly, I'm not against high-paying jobs, but I would like to see the language always reflect that intention.
And we're continuing to wrestle with the language, and your observation was correct. This is a draft of the first page of the website, so we had to cut the words down a bit to do the shorthand.
I like the other words better.
Well,
never mind.
Do you see this bar across the bottom?
Yeah, I got it, yeah.
Those are going to be backup pages with far more information about everything you see on the front page in the backup pages of the website.
Regent Davis.
I want to say that I'm, by virtue of the presentation and documents, that I view the progress, given the conversation that we had last meeting, to be quite positive. So I want to commend you for that. And I actually am quite impressed with some of the names that I recognize in terms of on the think tanks. I do agree with Regent Rose's wife, but there are probably some others, maybe of the legislative type, that should be added appropriately. But I do feel, when I look at it, I come away with feeling like we were heard on the issue of, giving us a little bit more oomph about what is this going to be like and how is it going to be integrated into other work. So to that end, I do know that, and you mentioned this in your remarks, Don, that we will, as an education committee, for example, want to talk to a couple of the think tanks along the way, given the enunciation of priorities that we've been talking about within our committee, and some of the topics that are on the list that we're going to talk about later when we talk about meetings. So I'm really glad to know that that's in the thinking up front, that we can engage and make sure that we're doing alignment from beginning, middle to end, and not at the end. So I want to commend you on that. And then my last comment, which I think is escaping me, is that I appreciate the sense of urgency in wanting to move forward. I don't think I had as great appreciation for it, quite frankly, last time. But I do think we need to move forward, and as long as we keep an open mind about continuous improvement in the process along the way, I think we'll get where we need to get as quickly and with as much quality as we need to. So I want to commend that effort. Thanks.
Regent Walsh.
A couple comments. I applaud you for going ahead with this. It seems to me that we've tried a different approach, and that was chartering the course. And it was all-inclusive. It dealt with a lot of issues, took a long time. The document that came out of it was fine, but it was dead on arrival because it didn't have any legs. And we ran into budgetary issues. And what I like about this is you're doing it. You're moving ahead. And I urge this board not to micromanage the process, because all we're trying to do is get ideas, and those ideas will come to us. And I know a lot of us talked about, why can't we do things at 20,000 feet? And that's what this is. There's going to be a growth of ideas from a group of people, and I'm not going to be concerned who that group is until I start to see the ideas. And if there's any challenge we have, it's reflective of the problems in the state in the budget issue is our challenge is to convince the decision makers who had tough decisions, and they have philosophies that are in conflict, but we all know they're all on the same page of trying to make this a great state. And on the one hand, it's revenue, on the other hand, it's spending. We must convince them that we're not part of the spending part, but rather we're part of the driver of the revenue. And that's what preparing students, high-paying jobs, and strong communities is all about. And that's why I'm happy with this, because we're focusing on those items that we can convince the decision makers to invest in this system so we become part of the revenue solution to this state. And I just don't want to get hung up on the process. I want to get started. I want to see some ideas come out, and then from 10, 20,000 feet we can comment. But I applaud you on that, and I hope we can get going.
Thank you. Regent Welch, may I add that much of the work that the charting a new course effort yielded will be the basis of some of the work that a couple of the think tank teams will be looking at, particularly the one on operational excellence and the efficiencies and some of the items that were enumerated there that are still relevant today.
Don, I didn't mean to criticize.
No,
As part of that, all I'm saying, there was no therefore at the end. At the end of the day, and I say this over and over, it's all about money. It's all about money. It's about why these students here shouldn't have to pay for this building. Sure. It's why we need to invest in this system, but we need to convince the state it's the right thing to do. We just can't say it's the right thing to do. And that's what you're going to do.
I understand. Thank you.
Regent Bartel. I just want to concur in some of the things that others have said, that this is a worthwhile project being undertaken in an effective way. But I want to raise a concern that I raised last time when we first heard about it, and that is you undertake a project like this by trying to break it down into manageable parts, and that's what the think tanks are doing. And I think that's great. The categories are still fairly broad, and I think it's going to be important as the 7 think tanks get together to try to keep them separately focused on the topic at hand. For example, preparing students and more graduates. Well, where is the line of demarcation there? I think it's going to be important for the facilitators, the staff who are working with these committees, to be talking to one another, making sure that these committees are focusing in separate areas. Otherwise, we will get similar recommendations from each one and perhaps leave out areas that we would like to have addressed. So I'm urging some kind of coordination of these think tanks, somebody who is aware of what each one of them is doing and trying to keep them in separate areas.
That would be me.
Yeah, it is.
Any other comments or any other questions for Vice President Match? Okay. Thank you very much, Don.
I know that one of our really big concerns as we are beginning this strategic planning process is that if not, well, as Regent Walsh said, that there be a therefore at the end of it, let's put it that way. And that's a concern I've heard from both the board and lots of colleagues. We very much want to find a way to involve the governor, the legislature, other policymakers in the process so that there's a sense of shared understanding and commitment to what we finally come up with. That's the goal here. And I know that President Bradley has some thoughts about how we might ensure that. So I'll turn it back to him now for a few of those ideas.
This is very brief. The statute, Chapter 36, charges us with the responsibility for planning for the needs of university education. So this process that we have heard the presentation on is our internal strategic framework. We have to do this to discharge our responsibilities as a Board of Regents. But I mentioned last month the idea of in addition to this internal strategic planning, that we seek partners for a broader statewide discussion about what kind of alignment there needs to be with our higher education system, K through 12, economic development, state resources, that broader discussion. Other states have done this, and more states are beginning to do it. And organizations such as the National Association of Governors, the National Conference of State Legislators, on a bipartisan basis, these organizations are recommending to their membership that states engage in this broader public discussion to look at the whole enchilada, this whole big, hairy, audacious goal for a state. Common to all these discussions is a recognition that there is no model for economic prosperity in this new economy that does not include adequate funding of public higher education system. I don't think it's the time right now, without a state budget, to begin engaging the governor and elected leaders and business and community leaders. But when the budget is finally approved, I intend to begin having those conversations to enlist support of this broader group of people to take our strategic planning work that we're doing internally and try to see if it's the appropriate time for Wisconsin to have this broader public discussion. So stay tuned for that effort.
Thank you, President Bradley. Now, just a few mention of some of the other great things that are going on around the system. I hope that you all saw that UW-Madison's Institute for Clinical and Translational Research recently received one of the largest grants in the history of the Madison School of Medicine and Public Health. NIH, the National Institutes of Health, awarded Madison $41 million to enhance its ability to translate medical research for practical everyday use. With the combination of the NIH grant and the UW Medical School's outstanding foundation, the ICTR, the Institute for Clinical and Translational Research, will be able to get new discoveries into the hands of those who need them most. So I want to congratulate Madison Chancellor John Wiley and the ICTR Director Mark Dresner and all of the faculty and staff that make ICTR a world-class facility. I also want to make mention of a particularly important success story, I'll categorize it as, at UW-Madison, and this follows on our very serious attention to the issue of campus security arising in part out of the tragedy of Virginia Tech. Over the past 6 months, the UW-Madison Police Department has partnered with their Division of Technology and University Communications, and University Housing, and the Dean of Students Office at Madison to tighten the campus's crisis response capabilities. The results have produced new strategies for transmitting information over as many lines of communication as possible. For example, both broadcast text messaging and reverse 911 technology are nearly ready for use. Reverse 911 would allow the police department to make calls to a number of campus phone lines at one time. I'd like to thank the UW-PD, the UW-Madison Police Department, and other officers for being prepared to keep the campus safe in case of emergency. We've already seen the fruits of some of that labor. I think you're all aware that there were 3 incidents on the Madison campus last week. Long week for John and his colleagues, but I want to compliment them, and I have directly already. I thought they handled all 3 of them very well, and particularly around the issue of getting information out to people on the campus, students, faculty, and staff, about what was happening in a way that provided them with base information they needed without creating panic, and offering rides to students if they needed to get off campus, if they were concerned for the incident that was the most serious. Fortunately, none of those incidents turned out to have anything terribly bad happen, but the response, I think, of John's colleagues on the campus was really terrific in handling what came up as it came up. UW-Platteville recently signed an agreement with the Confucius Institute that will establish a new branch of that institute on David Marquis' campus. The institute will enhance Platteville's intercultural understanding by providing members of the campus community with enrichment courses in Chinese language and culture. As part of this agreement, UW-Platteville will also have the opportunity to work with a Chinese partner institution, the South Central University for Nationalities in Wuhan, China. And David and his colleagues have already established a very thoroughgoing partnership with this unique institution in China, one of a number David was telling me the other night established specifically to deal with minority populations in China. There's an interesting structure there that he can tell you more about if you are interested. So congratulations to Chancellor Marquis and the UW-Platteville community for their work on this international partnership and for getting one of the Confucius Institutes here. Staying on the theme of internationalism, I learned when I was up at the UW La Crosse campus recently that international student enrollment there has almost doubled over the last year, with 300 students from 46 countries currently enrolled. That campus is reaping the dividends from successful global recruitment and superb academic rankings. I think Joe Gau's campus will also send an unprecedented number of students to study overseas, going the other way, with our students having those opportunities. So we want to applaud that work at a time when, as you can see, the themes of so much of what we talk about and of our visit to the UW River Falls campus is our nation's interaction with the world. A much more emphasized theme perhaps than when some of us of our age were going to college. And it's great that our students are having these opportunities now to study abroad in much more serious ways and to have students and others come from other countries to interact with them on our campuses. UW-Milwaukee received a boost toward establishing its proposed School of Public Health with a $10 million gift from Joseph Zilber. Mr. Zilber's grant, it should be noted, equals the largest single contribution in campus history. I think we all join with Chancellor Santiago in celebrating this significant step forward toward School of Public Health at Milwaukee. So thanks to Mr. Zilber, and we all look forward to the further development of this gift and the opportunity there. Finally, I want to draw your attention to the new Engineering Center grand opening at UW-Rock County. The center will house an electrical engineering program offered through the collaborative efforts of UW-Platteville and UW-Rock County. The building will allow students the opportunity to take courses toward a UW-Platteville bachelor's degree in electrical engineering while staying close to their home. The center represents $700,000 of funding from more than 50 area businesses, foundations, and individuals. This is a new way of operating for us in a real sense. That is, in parts of the state where local communities have said to us, we want you to bring this resource here, we've said we will do our part and we expect the local community to do its part. And in this case, they have, to the tune of $700,000. So starting this semester, Rock County's engineering students will have access to the latest technology and laboratory systems thanks in part to that private money. And this really is another example, I think, of a forward-looking innovation by the UW system in direct response to state need and regional need. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Bradley.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the report of the Physical Planning and Funding Committee. Regent Salas?
We're first on the reporting.
Regent Salas, you are first out of deference.
We're first in Regent Walsh's heart about this president, but we're not aware of your feeling towards our committee, President Bradley, but I want to thank you for the opportunity, and I want to thank Chancellor Betts for the wonderful sunlit, windowed Willow Creek meeting room that he provided for us yesterday, something that we had been looking forward to for some time. Next month, we return to the catacombs of the Heights, and we shall miss your generous offering of your facilities, Chancellor Betts. Further, the minutes of the September committee meeting were approved, and the committee heard a UW River Falls presentation about living the promise, building the future. Here, campus participants talked about the issue of technology enhancement, sustainability, and financial support for financial improvements. Additionally, UW College's Vice Chancellor Steve Wildbeck reported to the committee that counties and local municipalities contribute about $13 million annually for financial support of our UW colleges throughout the state. President Bradley, the following resolutions were unanimously approved by the Fiscal Planning and Funding Committee and now are presented to you as consent agenda items. Resolution 13D, brought by UW-Platteville, requesting approval of the design report of the Glenview Commons remodeling project and authority to increase the budget and construct the project. Resolution 13E is a request from UW-Stevens Point, asking approval of the design report and authority to construct the Baldwin Residence Hall remodeling project. And Resolution 13F, request authority to construct maintenance and repair projects at UW-Milwaukee, UW-Madison, and UW-Eau Claire. These projects include a roof replacement, remodeling of space, NH chiller, and cooling tower replacement. These resolutions, Mr. President, were passed unanimously by our committee, and I now move adoption of Resolution 13D, E, and F.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any request to remove any item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
President Bradley, Assistant Vice President David Miller reported that the Building Commission approved approximately $18 million for projects at the September meeting. The funding breakdown for those projects is $2,600,000 general fund supported borrowing, $3 million program revenue supported borrowing, and I'm very happy to report $12.5 million of grant funds. And as you noted in your report, President Bradley, I noted that in terms of the total, in my letter to the editor, that in terms of the total amount of the capital budget that we have before the state, the Chancellor-led fundraising in this next biennium made up $115 million of gifts and grants. And here again, these projects that were approved by the State Building Commission included the majority of grants for our public facilities at the last meeting. The committee adjourned to a closed session and arose with no report, Mr. President. This concludes the report of the Fiscal Planning and Funding Committee.
Good. Thank you very much. The next item is the report of the Education Committee. Regent Davis.
Mr. President, I am pleased to report the summary from yesterday's meeting of the Education Committee. You will be dazzled by its brevity.
I would.
Okay, we had a presentation from UW River Falls on Living the Promise, the Global Connection. We got a great sense of the infrastructure in place here at River Falls to enable their students to participate in any number of and variety of international learning experiences, from short courses led by faculty to independent research projects to service learning internships. Best of all, we heard powerful and poignant testimony from 3 UW River Falls students on the life-altering experiences they had abroad. I'd like to recognize them briefly. They were Nick Bisley, I think that's right, Rachel Mote, and Katie Leash. Katie had many of us in tears as she described her experience in working with children in Uganda. They each came back with informed global perspectives, not only on the new cultures in which they immersed themselves, but also on their own lives and their places in this huge global society of which we are a part, and in which human connections, as Katie told us, are everything. Second, the committee heard from UW Stout's Provost, Julie First Bowlby, on Stout's re-accreditation process. UW Stout is the only UW institution to use the Academic Quality Improvement Program known as AQUIP. AQUIP is an alternative re-accreditation process focused on continuous quality improvement. Given UW Stout's longtime institutional commitment to continuous quality improvement, the AQUIP process works extremely well for that campus. One of the distinguishing features of AQUIP is that it requires annual reporting in contrast to the more traditional Higher Learning Commission accreditation process, which occurs every 10 years, as we all know. Scout was commended for their innovative use of technology for teaching and learning, its broad-based participatory strategic planning, and for being a data-driven campus. Next, we heard, and finally, from our Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Rebecca Martin. This took up a large part of our discussion, and it was a rich one. We, at our September meeting, had set up a large set of priorities, and so the discussion, despite the absence of several key committee members, was around reviewing that list and working to clarify what we meant by some of the more generic topics we came up with in September. We asked Senior Vice President Martin to come back to us next month, November, with a refined and reorganized list that would include basically 3 categories. 1, priority topics that will in fact be covered by one or more of the think tanks charged with developing the UW system's strategic framework to advantage Wisconsin. We will ask that representatives from the think tanks join our committee at future meetings to share their findings on that alignment of issues. Second, topics that will require committee action. Third category are topics that we will take up for information purposes to deepen our understanding and knowledge as a committee around major policy areas. Next month, we will work to achieve consensus on a set of 2007-08 priorities. In fact, we will achieve consensus on a set of priorities for 07-08. Obviously, the number of topics the committee will be able to take up this academic year will hinge on how many meetings we will have, which I know we're going to talk about. So let me also note that we deferred analysis of the committee's routine work and whether we are spending our time well to the next month's meeting when Regent Spector is with us, since he is the driving force behind that reexamination. So since we didn't have a quorum, we don't have a consent agenda. And so I don't have any resolutions for you, and we adjourned early. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm dazzled.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Now we have the report of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee. Regent Smith.
We don't have any resolutions either, but we adjourned late. We've got a number of things to talk about, which I'll try to briefly summarize. No, we had a presentation from UW River Falls, which covered items such as the Living the Promise strategic plan process, the overview of the UW River Falls budget, UW River Falls Foundation, the Center for Advanced Cell Biology, and the importance of undergraduate research education going on at UW River Falls. You have in your materials the IT update, and I'm not going to certainly try to go through that. If you have questions, we have people here who can answer those. This, as a reminder, this arose out of a board resolution that we had in May of this year, directing an inventory of major UW information technology projects be provided to the Board of Regents, along with regular status reports on project implementations. We heard about the oversight and reporting structure, Common Systems expenditure plan for 2007-2008, and the IT roadmap. Again, if there's questions, we've got the folks here who can answer those, but I'm not going to go through the rather extensive written materials that you received on those. You also received, I think it was in regards to trust fund, a proposed a new investment policy statement. This was really a first reading that we were provided with, which was a comprehensive IPS, which is intended to better outline the roles and responsibilities of various parties and brings together the key policies governing UW system trust funds. Again, extensive materials. We have folks here if you have questions on those at the conclusion of my report. We had the 2007 proxy season voting results that you probably saw were summarized, that the UW Trust Fund submitted voting instructions for 60 proxy proposals, including non-routine corporate governance proposals. The primary submissions for UW Trust Funds on social issues involve the environment and global climate change, sustainability, which we've heard a lot about in the last couple of days, and animal welfare. We had 3 questions that come up, and I think Jesus brought up at the last meeting with regard to strategic asset allocation plan, and we talked about those, and let me just go over those briefly with you. Regarding the marked shift of assets out of U.S. equities over the past 5 years, the lack of investment in Wisconsin companies, and the greater use of alternative investments. The asset allocation policy first prescribes a percentage of trust funds to be dedicated to U.S. equities. The target for the long-term fund is 15%, with an allowable range of 10 to 20%. Secondly, it's the board's fiduciary responsibility for trust funds to select the best investments regardless of state or country of origin. Third, with respect to hedge funds, we're taking a conservative approach, including hedge funds is designed to lower the risk of the overall fund and improve the risk-return profile. If you have follow-up questions at the end of my report, that'd be great. We also heard about of course, the budget update, the financial management of our auxiliary operations, and Debbie Durkin had 2 or 3 different items that I want to report to you briefly on. One is the work of the Tuition and Financial Aid Advisory Group. They met in September. The group discussed using tuition for financial aid and the merits of bringing back the Bridge program that was advanced by the Board of Regents as a means to emphasize the need to start attaching funding to the covenant. The group felt strongly that funding for the covenant was critical to increasing access for low-income students. We also had an update on the first meeting of the new Segregated Fee Committee, which took place, I think, the last week, and can answer questions on that. We also heard an update on President Riley's testimony to the Assembly's Colleges and Universities Committee on September 25th, our response of Wisconsin higher education institutions to ethical concerns concerning relating relationships with student loan lenders. Finally, we heard that President Bush recently signed into law the Federal College Cost Reduction and Access Act. While our system's initial review does not indicate any review on our student lending policy, which we passed in the last fairly recently, there are favorable provisions in the Act, including an increase in the maximum Pell Grants and a reduction in interest rates for Stafford and other federally backed loans. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Good. Thank you. Any questions of the committee chairs? Regent Salas?
I don't have any questions. I want to thank you very much, Chairman Smith, in response to the questions that I raised in our last month meeting in regards to the asset allocation and investments of our holdings. And I'm looking forward to 2 things. I appreciate the report from your committee that was provided for us before this meeting in regards to the proxy voting. I think it was very informative. All the members of the board that I've spoken to really appreciate the information in regards to what are the issues that our stakeholders bring to us in regards to their concern, environment, animal treatment rights, etc. But I still hope that even though the statutorily and fiduciarily we're responsible to obtain the best results, I still hope that we can look at matters of how we can invest in Wisconsin. There are some wonderful opportunities, as we heard those of us who attended the meeting before the Board of Regents, the tech meeting that we had, and companies and under this fiscal environment are always looking for capital, and it would create jobs in our state and communities. And I hope that there's a way how we can balance our fiduciary responsibility to obtain the best returns to our investments, and yet at the same time invest in Wisconsin. And I want to hold on to that for the time being until I can be convinced that there isn't a way of how to do both, Regent Smith. But thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the report of the Committee on Meeting Effectiveness. If you recall, I had introduced the idea that how often we meet and what we do during our meetings ought to be the result of some intentionality rather than habit. So I asked the board to look at this whole question of our meetings, and that resulted in the appointment of a committee consisting of Regent Connolly Kiesler, Regent Thomas, and Regent Pruitt. And that committee met, and I now ask Regent Connolly Kiesler to give us a report on those deliberations.
You bet, but before I do that, I need to just take a moment and thank Chancellor Betts for the unlimited Diet Coke. Where did he go? That's been flowing in River Falls. Right behind you. There he is. Unbelievable. Thank you. And I wish Regent Burmaster was here, because she and I are always the ones who are scrounging for a Diet Coke about 10 o'clock, so we do appreciate that. Also on our committee, Regent Bartel, came to the meeting along with Regent Spector. I think that Mark talked about the three of us. And then David Miller joined us, and Judy Temby was there, and then we asked Kevin to join us for part of it also. Yeah, Regent Pruitt, I think Mark had said Regent Pruitt, Regent Thomas, and I was just kind of adding in the other people who did attend. And we really tried to take into account to balance what everybody wants when we look at the amount of meetings, how they function, and the types of things we talk about. We came in with 4 options, and we've narrowed it to 2 of them that we want to talk to you about today. We're going to talk to you about numbers of meetings, where they'd be held, and what would happen during those meetings. And we also want to talk about some of the policy issues that was sent out over the internet and that we also talked about last month. So the 2 options that we want to present to the board. First, we could go with 8 two-day meetings, at least 2 on campuses, and actually the more on campuses the better, and it helps Regent Salas and his committee because he gets better rooms. So I think you should be encouraging that. And I get Diet Coke. So with Prague and Stevens Point next year, just remember this. Okay. Oh, Pepsi. Diet Pepsi's fine too. It doesn't matter.
We have that contract, don't we?
Yeah, contract. Diet Pepsi, no problem. So at least 2 on campuses. We, of course, want to do 1 in Milwaukee and then 5 or fewer in Madison, depending on how it goes. We've listed some pros and cons to those. Particularly concerned about the cons, less time for learning and development, those relationships with other regions, and I think the feel of this board has been pretty clear that they do not want to see that executive committee take over and start meeting and making decisions without us, God forbid. So we want to make sure that we have enough meetings that the executive committee really doesn't need to kick in and hold several meetings without us. Another option to think about is to do 6 two-day meetings, again looking at campuses, Milwaukee and Madison, and then consider 2 full-day, one-day meetings as an option. And I'm going to go through and talk about what those might look like. A one-day meeting in Madison might look like this, where from 9 to 10 you have some optional committee meetings, and that's if this is to address particularly some of the things you brought up about physical planning. If there's some things out there that we really need to be voting on, we don't want to have to wait 2 months to do that. We could have committees start at 9 o'clock, go till 10, to really address just those very specific issues we need to take on that month. We could have a policy issue presentation and discussion, like put aside 4 hours. Maybe we take on 2 issues. Maybe there is 1 issue that's going to take 4 hours. I don't know. It depends on what the issues, those policy issues are. But really be able to get into some in-depth discussion about some issues. That has been coming up for as long as I've been on the Regents, which is 4 years. Frequently, Regents talk about we don't have the time to go in depth into some discussions. So this would allow us that ability to do that. Short lunch, and then have a Board of Regents meeting where we can address any issues that came up in committees or anything that has to be approved. But it's a one-day kind of option. Here's something else that Rick Wells and I particularly had a discussion about, and that's to look at, I guess you'd call this a 1.5-day meeting, or maybe it's considered what now is a 2-day meeting. But when you're on campuses, and Don is going to give this some thought after having us here since Wednesday night on whether this makes some sense or not. This option would be, and other chancellors certainly can chime in on this, would be that we go to campus on a Wednesday. And really, Wednesday is the day for the campus. From 3 to 5, we start with 2 hours worth of presentations. And we talk about the strategic plan and how it fits in with the strategic framework. We talk about how we hold ourselves accountable, mission. We have some panel discussions with faculty, staff, students, et cetera, community partners, whoever you want. Then we take a campus tour. Yesterday we got the tour. I would love to have been able to walk. Well, it was gorgeous, for one thing. But to walk into some of the buildings, to see some of the buildings. Sometimes we don't have that luxury of doing that. But it does pump you up when you get out and you can see the campus and you're talking about it, you're excited about it, and it gives us then that opportunity to move right into a reception with the community. Last night we got a chance to spend time with people in the community, and you've just seen it all and you've just heard it all. It gives us that opportunity to kind of share our thoughts with community people. So we do a reception, kind of like last night, that hors d'oeuvre drink kind of reception. And then Thursday, we would move into breakfast with the students. Committees would meet in the morning. lunch, and then we would do the Regent meetings in the afternoon. This would eliminate the campuses from having Thursday presentations. But if you think about it, yesterday we had an hour with the campus, today we've had an hour with the campus, and then committees still would have their time with the campus if there were specific things, but it just gave it to us in one block. The other thing that Rick really liked about this is we're fresh. We've just come in, we have energy yet, and sometimes like today, unless there's enough Diet Coke floating around, you start getting a little tired because you've been in meetings all day and you've heard presentations, and that his theory is you want us when we're the freshest and we can retain as much information as we can about the campuses. So this might be an option we could try. And I know there's been some discussion about when we're on campus, some of you may want us as long as you can get us. I don't know if that's true.
Don't add to that. Don't add to that.
But if we're coming more often, because when I started 4 years ago, really it took 7 years to make the whole loop. Now we're trying to get this done more in a 4-year or 3-year period where we're getting back on campuses. They may not feel that need to keep us for 2.5 days anymore. This might really suffice for what they need. Again, the chancellors have to tell us that, and you have to give that some thought. I know if Oshkosh had the opportunity, they would try that, this option of Wednesday, Thursday. So it's a possibility. Again, it's not really one day. It's kind of it's just 1.5. We talked about the 2-day meeting frame as far as times, and I'm even going to give you more of a breakdown on one of the other slides. But, Thursday we come in, 9 to noon, we talk about policy issues and presentation. Again, the ones that the Regents want to talk about, the ones that are on this back of this presentation, then we talk about, those are the types of policy things we want to discuss. Lunch, committee meetings, and then we go right into reception hors d'oeuvres, Fridays, kind of based as we are today. Here's another thing that when you start doing some research on other systems, many of them actually come in with a time frame like this to keep people on task. And it's not to rush us through this because obviously the chair, being as good as you are, will have the common sense on when we should drag something out or when we should cut something off. But we're thinking, sometimes when you do this, people know they have a time limit. And I don't know that we need a half hour for every committee report, but this is just kind of an example of what something might look like. So you have to call order. The president's report is kept to 25 minutes. We do the committee reports. Those are kept to a half hour each and additional resolutions. But this might be an option for us to try to give our chair some ability to keep the meeting moving if the board so desires. Looking at 08, if we went with a 2-day meeting or the 6-day and 2-day 1-day, here's what would happen. March would go to a 1-day meeting, and November would go to a 1-day meeting. We would take out May and September, which is we typically would have met this year with those extra two meetings. So that's kind of what we're talking about. We'd be on the campus, we'd be in La Crosse, Stevens Point, the UW Extension is going to host, and then Milwaukee. So kind of 4 meetings. And I don't know that Regents Falls gets any better room in the Pyle Center or not. But
well, Genesis Santiago has studios not too bad.
Okay. So just, so people can kind of look and see how we would do this. Obviously, we never meet in January anyway. August would be a later meeting, so you really wouldn't want a meeting in September 3 weeks later anyway, so that would take us into October instead. So that's what those days would look like. Then we spent some time, and we've had these informal discussions many times and formal discussions about what are the issues we need to look at as a board. So we sent out that email. Here's some of the things that came up. The role of colleges, which we know there's a committee meeting on that. We know eventually that could be a 2 to 4 hour presentation probably by the time that is ready to go. There's some issues out here with clinical PhDs for nursing programs. Right now, only Madison and Milwaukee do the PhDs. Is it time to start looking at why it was created that way? Can we do some of these on those other universities? I know Eau Claire is going to run into some issues. I don't know about La Crosse. I know Oshkosh is. There was some discussion about a big vision for the UW system. I don't know who put that on there, and I wasn't exactly sure what they meant by that. And if anybody did put that on there and want to chime in, feel free. Affordability of education in Wisconsin. The tuition structure, again, there's a committee on that, and that's probably going to take a little bit of time for them to give us a report. Attracting and retaining diverse quality faculty and staff. role of the UW System and Board of Regents in the charter schools, which that comes up at least annually. We have discussions about the charter schools, and it would be nice to maybe have one really in-depth discussion again about that.
That's next month.
That's, yeah, November.
Okay, great. Segregated fees. How much time did we budget for you, though? Under either mouth, 20 minutes. The seg fee and financial aid, we've been talking about committees and task force on those, teacher education programs, and then the future of graduate education in the UW system. You know, so I look at that and I go, if the Regents would take time to pick their top 3 of that list, so that we could actually plan next year that these were 3 top issues that this board wanted to address. I'm sure the system staff can fit that into the board meetings. And this can be a running list that just keeps going. You know, as things come up, we want to add to it, we go ahead and add to it, so then the next year, or even on just our regular meetings when we have an hour presentation on Thursday morning, or 2-hour presentation, we can take some of these issues that we've been asking about, along with some of the things that come up that Kevin and the staff feel we need to talk about. So, let me go back to the first response, thoughts, like it, don't like it. Go ahead.
Regent Connie Creaser, I want to thank you for responding to the concerns that I raised at the last meeting in regards to reducing the number of meetings. And my concern just briefly was that the capital projects, we want to be able to advance those projects in coordination with the meetings with the State Building Commission and get them through. But the fact that you invited Assistant Vice President David Miller to your committee, I'm sure he told you what our concerns were, and I'm satisfied that those issues were brought to your committee and that you responded effectively to them, because his concerns are mine, and we've talked about them before at our committee meeting. In regards to the options that you have available there, the option 1, or that is, if we were able to reduce them to the 8, I think, would be much more responsive to the kinds of things. To give you an example, because of at least this year, maybe the next year we'll be looking at a different situation, but in this biennium, we've had none of our major capital projects come before us because of the holdup with our budget. So what is going to happen is, depending on how long this is going to last, we're going to see if it lasts one more month, our December, and we don't meet in January, our February meetings are just going to be loaded with the projects that have been enumerated as we try to find out how we're going to accommodate the priority list for the 09 and 11 budget. So just keep that in mind. That's why something like the Wednesday and Thursday proposal that you have kind of worries me, because we need that time to be able to elaborate, to discuss those projects and provide you with those recommendations for your full consideration. I'm glad that last graph that you provided for us in regards to the policy issues, that you provided that for the full board. Because sometimes, and there have been a number of key policy issues that have come before our committee, and I'm glad that you noted the SEC fees, the other the audits that enlarge our or that add to the policy considerations that we have before our committee, in addition to physical facilities, that take up a lot of time, and that we can't, accommodate the stakeholders' concerns over those issues and their participation in that. And so just keep that in mind as we're doing it. I'm glad that you brought those
Well, it's
things
a
up.
good point, and if we know ahead of time what those top issues are going to be, and 3 or 4 that we're going to take on next year, we can leave enough time for the stakeholders to come and actually address those.
Yeah, we can do that. But those are my views at this time. I'd just like to thank you very much.
Of course, that's the way this is going to roll. I really want to commend the committee and everybody who participated, because this is so clear. Last time, I was in muddle land, so that may just be me. But anywho, just, for diversity of perspective, I, of course, like option 2. And the reason that I like option 2 is because I think it's radically different. And I think that we should try it just to see whether it works or not. I think 1 is a lot more like what we do right now. And I am very much respectful of there are going to be some possible big issues and jams. But I think we should just address those big issues and jams when they happen and try a different structure. So, and in terms of the meeting priority list, maybe a process would be to have us do that as a follow-up to this meeting.
Either we should just circle, if people don't want to hold on to that, you could just circle your top 3 and hand them to me, or you could just email looking at having that list.
Well, but see, here's the only thing I would say, just while I got the mic, and that is that I think some of this is going to shake out depending on what happens with the think tanks and what happens with the priorities of the committees and what have you. So I would think even circling 3 is going to be an FYI, not a determiner yet, possibly.
Yes. Well, and depending on which 3 you circle and the rest of the everybody circles, you know, that's what's going to raise. But yeah, we will have to fit in when these committees of safety and tuition, you know, when they're finished, they're going to have to get slid in.
My comment is a follow-up to what Danae's just been speaking to. I think this, and some of this we related to yesterday in our conversation in the Education Committee. Some of these things are linked together and are really, one thing clearly leads to another. And some of them are already underway. I don't think it's going to be too helpful to circle I think that I think that's going to shake out. I think that's going to take care of itself.
So maybe we just say these are issues that have come up that
these
people
are
want to
things that
deal
people
with,
have brought
and
up.
take them any way you want to take them, but we'd like to...
These are going to be addressed, I'm convinced, in one way or another.
Some of them.
My one concern is that in either option 1 or 2, that we're indicating at least 2 on-campus visits, which would, if it is only 2, we are now going to be rotating to our other campuses once every 7 years. See what I'm saying? If it is only 2, so I'd like to suggest at least 3.
I'm
Because
happy
I
with
think
that.
that at least as I talk to Regents, this is a valuable, this is one of the most valuable that we go around to the different campuses. And if we do 2 a year, outside of Washington.
Next year, I think there is 3 because UW extension.
Okay, and next year, what, we did have 3, but...
Well, there's actually, with Milwaukee, actually 4.
Right, I understand. But as...
And we can change it and say 3.
As your option says, it says at least 2.
At least 2.
I'd like to make sure we have
That's why we put at least, because I agree, it'd be great if we could do 3.
But if we do 2, start getting into that routine, then it's going to be once every 7 years that we're here. Yeah, that's not...
It didn't work, that's why we changed it.
Okay. The other question is on the one-day meetings,
yes,
the options. If we're trying to get a policy issue presentation, option 1 on the option one-day meetings does it, but the on-campus...
I almost think that on-campus is a 2-day meeting. It's just not Thursday and half Friday. It's Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
I'm not sure, you know, when I look at that, I go, it's really not a one-day meeting. It kind of is a 2-day. It falls more in the 2-day meeting than the one. It's probably just mislabeled.
Okay.
And that's, again, if a campus really wanted to do that. Go ahead.
Struck me that this was 1.5 as opposed to right now we have 2.5, really. And I was thinking at a time when resources are so scarce and tight, that's probably a more efficient use of our resources. And I think you can get a lot done if it's scheduled properly. And when Kevin and Mark visited our campus, I'm sure you'll agree, we did a lot of things in a compressed period of time, and it seemed to go very well. So I think that's a wise shift. And also, while I have the floor, I just want to say how effective those 2 gentlemen are as communicators, and it was really a treat to spend the whole day and a day and a half with them, watching them interact with so many different groups and just connecting so well and staying on message. And I think Regent Walsh said it yesterday. I would second how fortunate we are to have that kind of leadership and advocacy out of this struggle that we're in right now. You know, you sort of find out what you're all about, and I think we find we have excellent leadership. So thank you.
But so the option 2, the one-day meeting, we're still talking about really a day and a half.
Yeah,
that's
actually
fine.
are in reality.
Yeah, I just want to, but that's the one-day meeting. If we had a 2-day meeting at La Crosse, we'd still be under the same old
Well, and there's probably yet one other compromise you could make, and that would be 7 two-day meetings and 1 one-day meeting, just to try something like that.
Okay.
You know, because if you do decide to go on campus 3 times and you have to use 2-day meetings for that, it may not work to do 6 full days. I don't know.
Sure.
You know, this is just some of that. We have to really put it down on paper and figure out what the chancellors want. You know, I can't imagine the amount of work it wanted just to organize all the people that are standing in the hallways and the doors. I mean, helping us these last 2.5 days, you didn't have to walk anywhere. There was somebody there ready to help you and shake your hand. And just like, it is a huge amount of work, I suspect, to do 2.5 days. But if you like doing it, we're fine with it. And you know, we love being here. It's not bad.
Mike had a question.
I think Jeff is. You want me? You go ahead.
I have a couple of points. One, I wanted to emphasize some of the things that our committee discussed that aren't emphasized in the materials that you see here. One is with respect to these policy discussions that some of the people who study governance call deep dives. They're basically unstructured discussions of that policy issue. It is something that boards need to do. They need to get in and roll up their sleeves and talk about an issue in a free form way. I mean, there can be some guidance to it. You can have some materials that are handed out in advance or somebody leads it off, but it is kind of engaging the entire board in a policy discussion called a deep dive. I don't know why we said it, but that's the thing that we were talking about. Secondly, it is another feature of governance, those who study governance now, that there should be clearly defined educational objectives for the board members. So when we have a presentation, there should be an objective of that presentation, and we should be educating the regents. As new regents come on, we have to make them familiar with the issues, familiar with the resources and the institution, and that is something we always have to keep in mind as we design our meeting options. Third, although it says it up there, I want to emphasize that when we go to a campus, we really do want to meet faculty and staff. We have a procedure now where we have breakfast with students, and that's wonderful, and I think all of us have enjoyed that opportunity. But we also want to meet faculty and staff and maybe have some one-on-one opportunities to talk to them. Maybe it's a panel discussion, but maybe it's something else, so that we in some organized way have that opportunity. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and something I mentioned in the committee, is that I've been concerned that although we all have an opportunity to participate on the committees, it's only one committee that we participate in, and sometimes issues come up on other committees that are meeting at the same time, where we would like to at least hear the discussion, if not participate in the discussion. And I have proposed a procedure whereby if the agendas of the committees come out in advance, you could indicate your interest in participating in a particular discussion if that could occur at a separate time or at the board, rather than at a committee where you have to leave your committee, perhaps leave it without a quorum, in order to participate. I'd like to see that, some kind of a procedure like that occur. Several times I've had to leave what has been an excellent meeting of physical planning and funding and go to a different committee in order to participate in a discussion that I was really interested in, and I hope we can find a way to accommodate that.
I have a couple of things. One, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about now, but I'd like to reserve the right to come back after this discussion is over. It's pertinent, but it's not totally pertinent to what we're talking about here. So I'll raise my hand again later. Okay. But the other is possibly thinking about, on an as-needed basis, that a committee meeting does not have to be at the same time as a Board of Regent meeting. So if there is some work to do that comes up in an interim time, I'm warming up a little more to the idea of cutting back the meetings, just so you don't have any more nightmares. It's hard for me to warm up to that because I thought your last nightmare was pretty entertaining. And I think there's so much work to do and there's so much to learn that I hesitate personally to want to cut down the meetings. But if we go that route, I think you ought to leave the option open that committee meetings can be held at a different time if the workload requires it.
We have done that, where committees have had special meetings outside of the normal board meeting time.
Yeah, and then I'll just end it by saying that I am hesitant to reduce the number of meetings because there is so much to absorb and so much to learn. But I don't think we need to meet just to be ceremonial either.
Any other questions of Eileen?
Why did you choose Wednesday and Thursday for the day and a half as opposed to Thursday and Friday?
Only because some discussion was that a lot of faculty and staff, after they've had their work ready for this, may not want to stick around till 4, 5, 6 o'clock if it runs late on Friday. That, you know, it might work better to do it Thursday and be finished Thursday. If we go late Thursday, it's not as bad as a Friday where people are trying to slide into their weekend. So, you know, again, I think it's a flexible, it's just an idea. If somebody really wanted a Thursday, Friday, I guess that was the biggest discussion about why do that.
Well, our ultimate goal here, assuming that people have asked their questions and expressed their views, is to adopt as a board, we have to adopt our meeting schedule for 2008. So whatever we do doesn't mean we're locking things in cement. We're just saying that this is what we're looking at doing for 2008. So if there isn't further discussion or questions of the committee, Regent Smith?
I think I'd move option 2, but I would change at least 2 on campus to at least 3 on campus.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion of the motion? And that, Regent Smith, would result in adopting the meeting schedule that you see on the screen on the right-hand side.
Correct.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Okay, the ayes have it. We have a 2008 meeting schedule adopted, and it would be the one on the right-hand side. And Judy, you would communicate then with the campuses?
Yes.
And
yes, I will.
Make the arrangements accordingly.
Yeah, because we'll have to decide if it ends up being a Wednesday, Thursday, that one of the campuses, that will change some of these dates. Because right now we're figuring Thursday, Friday on all these campus visits. And if one says, hey, I'd like to try the other one, it'll move us by a date. So we'll have to figure out.
We actually, so that's fine with us as is.
Right. And yours is in Madison, so
right.
It's yours and People's Point. If you decide you want to try it, then we'll let everybody know. We have advance notice to do that. Mr. President.
Okay, Regent Davis.
Just to make sure that the record reflects the fact that, you know, we're going to try this, and I presume that somewhere in the middle of the year we can, you know, be free to see if it's working or not and be flexible.
We wanted to try this for a year, but I agree. And if a meeting has to happen in September because there's something going on, the meeting happens. I mean, we don't say, well, there isn't a meeting, so we can't have it. It's just like we had to do this summer, met in early August, because there was an issue with set tuition. So we do have to be flexible as we're trying to figure out if this will work or not.
Right. And we certainly are looking to the leadership of this august body to accommodate the needs of our public facilities at our campuses and accommodate them in this meeting schedule, because that's our primary concern.
Correct.
In our committee, at least, to be able to accommodate them, especially with this a delay in the budget process and the anticipated surge of proposals coming in later on this year and the beginning of next year. But we'll be in touch with you on the recommendations from
I would like to thank Eileen and the other members of the committee and everybody else. And you know, I think mission accomplished. We now have an intention of what we want to do in terms of frequency, location, and even though we haven't adopted items that we're necessarily going to talk about, we know we want to get to those larger policy issues. And we're going to be able to set a calendar for 2009, and we'll look back and say, this helped us, we did a better job, or we need to make further adjustments. So thanks very much.
Can I come back to the other issue I wanted to just bring up, and that is consideration to look at meeting content. And I may be a little overly sensitive to it for the number of months I've been here, at least on the fiscal planning and funding committee and finance in particular because of my background, and also my background being in public companies. I'm concerned about content. And I'm suggesting that maybe we look at, and again, my sensitivity, I'm not trying to make it a cookie cutter that this and public company should be the same. I know there's many, many differences, but there are some similarities, and particularly as they pertain to some requirements of Sarbanes-Oxley. And even if they're not requirements of this board, it might be a good idea to look at their requirements and see what makes sense to us. I feel there's a lack of reporting that will allow us to carry out our fiduciary responsibilities as a board in some cases. And I may be wrong, but I'm just suggesting that something be established to at least look into that, particularly in physical planning and funding and finance. And I would be happy to participate in that if you so choose. But I'm very concerned that we, as long as we're reviewing meeting schedules, that we review content and make sure that we all are comfortable that we're fulfilling our fiduciary responsibilities as a board member.
Okay. Duly noted, and you'll be called upon. And thanks for volunteering. I now ask Regent Pruitt to deal with the resolution of appreciation for UW River Falls.
It's been a pretty couple amazing days, UW River Falls. You know, the outpouring of students and staff to meet us and greet us and inform us and entertain us has really been a most remarkable sight to behold. Chancellor Betts asked the question in his last remarks, what is it we are doing here? That is a question I ask myself an awful lot with usually unsatisfactory answers. But in this case, I think we found that this campus has answered that question in spades, that they are quite well equipped to determine and sort of lead both this campus and as part of this system going forward. One of the most important, if not the most important jobs I think we have is responsibilities we have as regents is our role in the selection of chancellors to lead these institutions. And I think we saw yesterday in our conversation about the budget a vivid demonstration of the important leadership that all of our chancellors are providing to both our campuses and the public debate and conversation around this state on the future of higher education. I have been honored to serve on a number of regent selection committees, and it's the chair of one, the group which included Regents Conley Kiesler, Davis, Smith, and Salas, who came together and selected Don Betts to be chancellor at UW River Falls. And I think we did a pretty damn good job. Truth be told, the heavy lifting was done by Terry Brown and the UW River Falls Search and Screen Committee. I remember the conversation when Terry presented us with these four candidates, and her basic plea, although she said it much more nicely, is really, please don't screw this up. And like a blind squirrel who finds an acorn every once in a while, we managed to pick the right guy. And in thinking about what I would say in introducing this resolution of appreciation for UW River Falls, I happened upon an editorial that Chancellor Betts wrote in the River Falls Journal last May. He was describing the centerpiece of Living the Promise. This is what Don wrote. The promise is that we will purposefully and intentionally develop engaged leaders This development is aimed at our students and our faculty and our staff. We believe that by consciously creating opportunities for all of us to acquire or refine our leadership skills, we are creating a reservoir of talent clearly needed to address the multiple intersecting challenges we face on the campus, in our community, state, region, and beyond. I thought that was a pretty neat idea. It reminded me of the words of the great anthropologist Margaret Mead, who once said something like, "Never underestimate the ability of a small group of committed individuals to change the world. Indeed, they are the only ones who ever have." We have seen in these last 2 days the students, faculty, staff, and leadership of UW River Falls are indeed changing the world, and we are most grateful to all our new friends at UW River Falls for letting us take a brief look inside this extraordinary institution. In that spirit, I am pleased to offer the following resolution. Whereas the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System are pleased to see UW River Falls' commitment to the principles of sustainability, globalization, inclusiveness, and leadership development, as displayed during the campus presentations this month. And whereas UW River Falls, by increasing collaboration with community leaders, businesses, and local government, is dedicated to achieving energy efficiency and promoting economic growth in the St. Croix Valley. And whereas the number of students, faculty, and staff participating in international programs has increased significantly, demonstrating the campus-wide desire to promote global awareness and participation in the international community. And whereas UW River Falls has incorporated community service with the undergraduate education experience through service learning and civic engagement programs in the interest of developing high-quality leaders and model citizens. And whereas Regents appreciate both the UW River Falls Dance Theater's outstanding performance and the creative displays of the International Student Fair for their celebration of diversity of campus life. And whereas faculty members and students are involved in substantive research projects that will positively impact the local community and elevate the quality of life for people around the globe. And whereas UW River Falls is a laudable example for Wisconsin in its willingness to implement comprehensive renewable energy and conservation initiatives to achieve energy independence by the year 2012. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System thanks Chancellor Don Betts and the entire UW River Falls community for generously hosting the board's October 2007 meeting and praises its faculty, students, and staff for providing an enlightening and productive experience that points toward the exciting future of the UW system.
Thank you, Regent Pruitt, and we'll have the minutes reflect that that resolution was approved by acclamation. Are there any communications, petitions, or memorials? None? Any other unfinished or additional business? Okay, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess. Could we do a 7-minute recess? Okay, we come back at noon, and we will then entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Will we each hear